The magic red light has appeared. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to call the April 20th City Council meeting to order. Tonight, everyone is here. There is no excused absences. And tonight's agenda is a little different than normal due to the appointment of the vacancy occurring later in this meeting after new business. Is there any objection to the agenda as presented? And hearing none. The next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I welcome you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item of business is Administrative Professionals Day, and we would like to invite the following members of Issaquah staff. I think we have Cherie, Rochelle, Alicia, Bill, and Lindsay here to the podium. Lindsay's final words to me this morning is, I'm not going to be the one talking, but I just heard that she is going to be the one talking. So, whereas Administrative Professionals Day is observed annually in workplaces around the world to recognize the important contributions of administrative support staff, and whereas administrative professionals play an essential role in coordinating the office and governmental operations of the City of Issaquah, and whereas administrative professionals are vital contributors in today's team-oriented work environment, are key frontline public relation ambassadors for their organizations, and whereas the work of administrative professionals today requires advanced knowledge and expertise in communications, computer software, office technology, project management, organization, customer service, and other vital office management responsibilities, and most importantly, have the willingness to learn and accept new challenges. Now, therefore, I, Mark Mullet, Mayor of the City of Issaquah, to recognize Wednesday, April 22nd, 2026, as Administrative Professionals Day in the City of Issaquah, and I invite the community to join me in thanking the city's administrative professionals for their service and outstanding contributions. My own mom was the office manager at my local elementary school for 25 years, so this has always been a fun day in our house where treats were brought home. But okay, Lindsay, I know you're so excited to speak. Here you go.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for acknowledging administrative professionals and for highlighting the important role that we play in supporting day-to-day operations and keeping the city running efficiently. We appreciate this recognition of the work we do for the Issaquah community. Thanks.
Okay. Photo shoot time. Photo shoot. Oh, one second. Okay, here we go. Council members, it's all Bill's riddles. Your riddles, right? Yes. I'm 0 for 28 at this point, but. The next item of business is audience comments. Those you sign in advance, you'll be called on first. If you're joining virtually, you can raise your virtual hand. Those on the phone can press *3. If you're in the room but did not sign up, there will be an opportunity to raise your hand at the end. And the rough time estimate here is 3 to 5 minutes. We do say there's nothing wrong with brevity during audience comments. Brevity gets bonus points, not negative energy. And please realize it's not a dialogue back and forth. We just want to hear from members of the community about concerns. And Madam Clerk, is there anybody signed up to speak during audience comments? And there is. Madam Clerk, go ahead.
All right, the first one is Nicholas Harang.
Hi there. So I'm a lifetime Issaquah resident, and because of this, I am deeply opposed to Issaquah implementing flock cameras in the city limits or any sort of automatic license plate readers. Flock cameras pose a risk to the security and privacy of residents, and the risk is not evenly distributed. People of color, low-income individuals, LGBTQ+ community members, people seeking reproductive care, and especially immigrants carry that higher risk. There are many documented cases of ICE using flock cameras to track and target people, and I want Issaquah to remain safe to everyone who wants to live and visit the city. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And we'll we usually try to hold applause. And just, yeah, please state your name and your relationship or to the city, and that could just be your address or a business. And Madam Clerk, next.
Leslie Kreher.
Good evening. My name is Leslie Crayer, and I live at 22537 Southeast 42nd Terrace. Thank you for the opportunity to make a public comment on the flock surveillance cameras. My understanding is that under flock contracts, ICE can possibly get backdoor access to surveillance data without explicit permission. Also, with the AI-type system flock's using, details such as car color or other specifics can be logged. My concern is with privacy, data security, and data sharing. Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon recently noted that 75% of Flock's law enforcement customers are part of a national lookup program. And this tool allows them to share information with any customer also enrolled in the lookup program. This doesn't feel like data security to me. I would like to request that Mayor Mullet and the City Council get the issue of flock cameras into a public agenda with a clear timeline for a decision. This would allow for transparency in full view of an informed public and allow our most vulnerable neighbors to be aware and prepared. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk.
Alistair Brewer.
Here we go. Alistair Brewer, Issaquah resident since 1997. Excuse me. My wife and I have been Issaquah residents since 1997. We have raised our now adult kids here and are very concerned about public safety and protecting the rights of residents. I'm here because Issaquah is considering technology that carries risks far beyond what most residents realize, flock automated license plate readers. Supporters will say that the cameras are harmless because the city can opt out of sharing data with federal agencies. But reporting shows that does not stop federal access. According to an NPR investigation, federal agencies, including ICE, routinely obtain flock data through subpoenas and bench warrants, even when local jurisdictions explicitly refuse to share. The articles describe multiple cases where ICE accessed ALPR data from cities that believed they had walled themselves off. Once the data exists, federal agencies can and do get it. These systems create a continuous form of automated surveillance that courts have repeatedly said raises Fourth Amendment issues. Carpenter versus United States and other cases have ruled that long-term aggregated tracking of a person's movements constitutes a search requiring full Fourth Amendment protections. These networks that track vehicles across cities, counties, and states create exactly the kind of persistent surveillance those rulings warned about. When the government can reconstruct a person's movements over days, weeks, or months, that crosses a constitutional line. Yet despite that, the current federal administration has increasingly relied on administrative warrants, not judicial bench warrants, to obtain data. Administrative warrants are not reviewed by a judge, and they do not meet the Fourth Amendment standard. When national leaders use rhetoric labeling political opponents as terrorists, it raises the stakes of any surveillance system, because once a group is labeled a threat, surveillance tools tend to be turned on them. History shows this again and again. Flock's own technology, their own website, boasts that the system can identify vehicle make, model, color, unique decals, and even bumper stickers. So that means that political expression on your car becomes data in a searchable law enforcement database. In a moment where political speech is being demonized, that should give every Issaquah resident pause. Issaquah does not need to join this network, and we do not need to expose our residents to federal surveillance that they never consented to. I urge the council to reject flock cameras and choose a path that protects both public safety and civil liberties. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you do agree, you can just raise your hand at the end as well, because like I said, our tradition here is we try to avoid having clapping after audience remarks. Madam Clerk?
Karen Ellis.
You turned it off.
Cool.
Now you're back on.
Thanks. Dear City Council members and Mayor Mola and my neighbors, my name is Karen Ellis, and I have been a resident of Issaquah for 10 years at 630 Southeast Kramer Place. I've also been a small business owner in Issaquah. I'm a therapist, and trust is really important to me, and it's the cornerstone of my practice. And without trust, I wouldn't be able to work, and I want to trust my local government, that they have my best interest in mind and the best interest of my neighbors. I want to trust that everyone is welcome and that my city prioritizes the trust and the neighbors and the people who live there. I cannot trust a government that primary support goes to corporations such as Target, REI, and large businesses that can afford their own security for merchandise loss. After the grant from Flock that I know Issaquah has been offered, who's going to pay for the extra costs? Because I don't want to, and I don't want my neighbors to have to pay for it either. As individuals have mentioned before me, there is a cost to surveillance. My personal data pays a price, and my neighbor's personal data pays a price. And anyone that drives through Issaquah will pay that price too. And I know there are numerous other towns and cities in the area who have Flock, and people don't shop there. I don't shop there. Redmond has been suspended, or is suspending and reconsidering their Flock. And I want to trust the city council members have considered the potential loss of business as well as the aspects of personal data being used against us. So just think very hard about whose trust you actually need, the community's trust or large corporations that only care about their bottom line. As a therapist and small business owner, I hope trust means as much to you all as it does to me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Oh, this is good. We're making progress. I like it. Madam Clerk?
Ren Liss.
Hi, I'm Ren Liss. I'm a resident at 218 Northeast Dogwood Street. I'm also a property owner and a business owner within Issaquah. I also oppose Flock cameras for many of the reasons presented so far. As the daughter of an immigrant, I very much oppose any surveillance that puts our neighbors at risk. As a woman who has been a survivor of domestic violence, I definitely oppose Flock and the capacity for anyone who knows me and knows my car. They can get my license plate. I can't keep that secret. It is personally identifiable information that can be used outside of Flock to track my whereabouts, where I work, where I live, anywhere I go. I find that deeply concerning, not just for myself, but for others. On top of that, Flock itself has not been following its own parameters of not accessing cameras. That was demonstrated in them showing cameras that included minors without the consent of the business owners to a potential client. Those minors were also young women, young girls who were in gymnastics attire and potentially swimsuits. Like, that is a wild lapse of judgment to begin with, and in opposition to their own policies stated in the facts on the web. I think that is enough. My concerns run deeper. I would urge you to vote quickly and swiftly to not implement Flock. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great. Success. Madam Clerk?
Julie Carr.
Good evening. My name's Julie Carr. I live here in Issaquah. I live in the Sycamore neighborhood. And I just wanted to add my comment as well tonight, just urging a public discussion of the flock camera proposals as soon as possible. I don't feel that it benefits us to delay that conversation. These were proposed, and it seems to be waiting in the wings. I personally am interested in us understanding whether this is truly a wise choice for Issaquah. I doubt that, and I think the only way we can really have a good conversation about it is if we put it on an agenda and move forward as soon as possible. I am concerned about the publicly stated business development plans, ambitions, and behaviors of the Flock Corporation. I know there are other corporations that also have similar cameras. I also have concerns there as well. It seems like it's something that many people are concerned about, and I just urge efforts right away. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk?
Chandra Ryder.
And we see you in the back. Raise your hand. We'll get to you. Once the people who signed up, we will make sure. Oh, okay.
Good evening. My name is Chandra. I am a current Issaquah resident. My spouse and I live in the Tallis neighborhood. I work for a large global Fortune 100 company based here in Issaquah. And 10 years ago, I married the love of my life up the street at Tibbetts Creek Manor. I live in Issaquah, I work in Issaquah, I do most of my shopping in Issaquah, and I receive most of my health care in Issaquah. I am proud to call Issaquah home. So it concerned me recently to learn that last year, the Issaquah Police Department and City of Issaquah applied for and received a DOJ grant to, among other things, install 12 flock cameras across the city. The proposed location of these cameras would capture vehicle data on every car entering, driving through, and leaving Issaquah daily. I am a former security professional with more than 10 years of experience in asset protection, corporate security, and alarm monitoring. 2 years ago, I helped my current employer move their in-house self-hosted alarm monitoring system to a cloud-based service similar to Flock. Cloud-based alarm systems and video monitoring services have revolutionized a once niche industry that was out of reach for most businesses and homeowners. Self-hosted and monitoring solutions are more secure than cloud-based ones. They are installed, operated, and maintained on-site. They require trained personnel to operate and maintain. Historically, they have been cost prohibitive and hard to implement, so large entities were the only ones that had the resources and personnel to do it. Cloud-based systems, on the other hand, like Flock, operate on a different model. Data is stored off-site in data centers across the U.S. Flock handles the installation, maintenance, and IT work, taking the burden of installation and maintenance off the entity. Their main selling point for their LPR system is no IT, no wiring, no hassle. What you give up for the convenience and hassle is privacy and control. Flock and services like it are the Facebook of the alarm monitoring and security industry. They are cheaper to set up, operate, and maintain because they are designed to connect and share data amongst agencies. That data is where they make their real money, selling it to other agencies. Because of this, the system is by design set up to share your data with everyone else. Sure, just like Facebook, you can choose to share less and you have control over your data, but as other Washington agencies have learned, turning off those sharing settings doesn't keep other agencies from accessing it. And this is my primary concern with Flock and local law enforcement using these systems. Washington has some of the tightest privacy laws in the country, yet last year a police officer in Texas used Flock cameras to track and arrest and charge a woman seeking legal health care in our state. The University of Washington Center for Human Rights has documented abuse by federal agents during immigration investigations, illegally accessing Washington systems to track and locate immigrants in our state. Despite our state's best in the country privacy laws, folks with ill intent are still able to access data they shouldn't, and Washingtonians pay the price. Surveillance is not safety. Having worked with law enforcement for many years, I appreciate the job they are tasked to do, and I am sympathetic to the challenges. I understand why Flock is an enticing solution to make their tough jobs seem a little bit easier. But let's find a way to accomplish that mission without putting Issaquah residents, workers, and shoppers at risk of invasive surveillance and federal overreach. Seattle, Redmond, Renton, Linwood, and even the Pierce County Sheriff's Office have either turned off or stopped implementation of these cameras for security concerns. So I urge the mayor and the city council to reject this Flock camera proposal and work with the community to find equitable solutions for the community problems these cameras hope to address without compromising the safety and privacy of its residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk.
Victor Bello.
Mayor, council members, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm standing before you tonight as a resident of 8 years, deeply invested in the city's civic life through multiple task forces and commissions, most recently the Sister Cities Commission, but also as a Venezuelan who lived through the agonizing descent of my home country into a police state. I know firsthand what it looks like when a government builds the technological infrastructure to track its citizens, monitor daily movements, and systematically remove dissidents. It always begins quietly, heavily subsidized, and is always sold under the guise of public safety. As you deliberate in the eventual implementation of the flock system, we know it is being framed as a modern solution to property crime, but this technology is a Trojan horse. The Flock Falcon camera uses AI that does vehicle fingerprinting, meaning it does not simply read the license plates. It also logs highly specific visual profiles, such as bumper stickers, roof rack, custom wheels, creating a searchable pattern of life database that creates a dragnet that continuously logs the movements of every resident, commuter, and visitor, regardless of whether they are suspected of a crime. We must also recognize that the $50,000 federal grant is a marketing tactic meant to draw the city into a sunk cost trap. While the grant may cover the initial hardware, Issaquah taxpayers will be permanently responsible for the ongoing software licensing and data storage fees, which could exceed easily $100,000 a year. But my deepest concern is the existential threat that this poses to our vulnerable neighbors and my own loved ones. I have family here who are refugees. They are hardworking people who live in Issaquah, contribute to our community, and pay taxes. I have nephews who are actively building their futures here, attend college in Bellevue, Issaquah High School, Issaquah Middle School, growing up right alongside my 13 and 16-year-old sons. Implementing this surveillance network could effectively turn these young men and my entire family into targets of a nationalized police state. Because data captured by these cameras is transmitted to centralized cloud servers, it is entirely removed from the exclusive control of the Issaquah Police Department. The current architecture of the federal government provides absolutely no guarantees that this information will not be weaponized against the residents of Issaquah. Research has already proven that federal immigration agencies exploit backdoors and side doors access to these surveillance networks. In fact, Border Patrol has searched data to at least 10 different Washington police departments despite the absence of any explicit sharing agreements. State laws such as the Senate Bill 6002 are secondary to federal subpoenas. A federal court can override this, and Flock needs to turn over all the data, and protection of my family and anyone else is out the window. We already know the terror this causes. Last October, Diana Romero was followed and detained by federal agents in an unmarked vehicle right outside a local preschool. Our community's trust was shattered. I see that item ID 1993 is on the agenda tonight. You clearly recognize the fear that is currently pervades our city. To eventually approve a mass surveillance program in the same breath would be a profound betrayal of the residents who call Issaquah home. Neighboring cities like Linwood and Redmond have already suspended or terminated their flock programs, already realizing the true risks and experiencing a total collapse of public trust. As we've seen just this month, even the Issaquah Highlands Council and other local advocacy groups have withdrawn their support for the grant after acknowledging the severe risks associated with privacy and oversight. I ask you to listen to these warnings of history and clear precedents set by our neighboring cities. I urge you to formally reject this federal grant when it comes before you and terminate any plans to install flock safety cameras. Please reallocate these resources towards community-based policing and human resources that do not demand the sacrifice of our civil liberties. Once you build the infrastructure of a surveillance state, it is nearly impossible to dismantle. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And Madam Clerk.
Oh, it looks like we have Karen Ellis again, but we've heard from Karen. So next we have Chris Adair.
Good evening. I didn't intend to talk. and I really don't have anything to add to what all of these people have said. They've really presented some facts that I hope you're listening to. I come just with a question. Well, let me go back. I live at 1276 Front Street South. I have lived here since 1986, and my husband in the back row there is Michael Adair, and he has lived here for 74 years. When I came, the people of Issaquah were complaining because they were getting their second stoplight. And they hadn't figured out why they needed the first stoplight yet. So it's been a bit. And now here we are, hoping that we don't get surveillance that we really don't need, we really don't want. And all I'm saying is, I hope, and I want to trust, that the people and the citizens of Issaquah would be given the opportunity to understand what the flock is and to be given the opportunity to vote on it. Okay? Thank you very much. Hi, Russell. Been a while.
See, they're seconding the high Russell support, so that was good. Madam Clerk.
Margaret Escobar.
Really, it's hard to add to everything that everyone has already said. I agree with our previous speakers. I just want to say that this circumvents the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution using technology, because people can access, police can access information without a warrant. And that may seem like a good idea when you're the police officer, but we swore, pledged allegiance to the flag, and we asked for liberty and justice for all. And part of that is defended by the Fourth Amendment. And if we give it up just for ease, we're going to be sorry. We're going to regret it. The fact that we have a right to protect ourselves from searches, from surveillance, except when a judge deems it necessary, is a precious thing, and we shouldn't just give it up for something that looks like an easy way out. That's my first statement. My second is, there isn't a person in this room who might not someday have a loved one, if not themselves, who's being stalked by a creepy ex-partner, whatever. It is very common. And making it easier for that person to make their life miserable is not something any of us will want. And so for a second reason, we might regret this tool in the future. So I kind of wanted to make those 2 points clear.
Can you state your name and relationship?
I'm so sorry. I'm Margaret Escobar. I've lived over 30 years in Issaquah. I live at 490 Mount Defiance Circle for most of that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk.
Will Cariotti.
Hi, I'm Will Cariotti. I live in the Issaquah Highlands. Thank you, council members, for the floor and for the opportunity to provide comment. I have lived around Issaquah my whole life and began living in the Issaquah Highlands recently. Issaquah has recently been approved for a federal grant of $400,000, a portion of which will be put towards the installation of flock cameras. And I am terrified at the prospect of those cameras being installed here. In an ideal world, flock cameras would be a useful tool in keeping our community safe, but in reality, that's not how they'll function. Issaquah has an already remarkably low violent crime rate, very little of it random or happening in the streets, very little of it preventable or aided by sprawling security systems. Security systems like that might make things easier to resolve, but they aren't going to really prevent someone from getting hurt. What is far more scary to me is the prospect of someone who I did not consent to my information being shared with, knowing where I am or where I might go. I have, at certain points in my life, had a reason to believe that someone was trying to intentionally find out information about me to intimidate and possibly hurt me. This certainly wasn't something I had enough evidence to go to police about or acquire legal protections for, but was more than enough to cause a lot of stress and paranoia in my life. The situation has since been resolved, but I can't help but imagine how terrifying it would have been if there had been additional information about my whereabouts available for public access. I can't imagine I am the only member of our community who has been in a situation where that kind of information could cause them significant stress or potentially endanger their life. I urge the council to consider that the potential harm done by this kind of surveillance is a lot more concerning than the perceived benefits it might provide, and choose a different, safer method of surveillance. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
BJ Olam.
Hello. All right. My name is BJ Elam. I've been a resident of Issaquah for around 4 years. I live in the Bohemian, just a little bit that way. City council members, Mr. Mayor, all the city staff helping to run this smoothly. Thank you for your time and openness to hearing from the public tonight. Something I really appreciate. I come to urge the city council to formally schedule a vote on the proposal to add flock ALPR cameras to Issaquah, and for that vote to be soon, and for that vote to be no. This is for a number of reasons, not least among them the safety concerns these cameras pose to vulnerable people, the ways such groups are made more vulnerable by their movements being tracked, and the general unpleasantness of surveillance in our community. But there's another quite basic reason, which is questioning the degree to which we should entrust our safety and the data about our lives and our movements to huge data harvesting tech companies, and Flock in particular. Over the past year, this company has given dramatic opportunity for seriously questioning their trustworthiness on these issues, especially from the points of view of security and compliance. So I want to just overview a few incidents that stood out to me. In terms of security, these come from 404 Media. As of last year, the highest level of access, so seeing everything the camera saw and recorded, and even being able to adjust those images, could be obtained on some Flock cameras via a straightforward process that began with simply pressing a button on the back of the camera a few times. Also, as of last year, Flock's accidentally exposed data to the internet that included things like police officers' contact information, their expected patrol areas, and appeared to also include a way to track active location of certain patrol vehicles. As recently as this year, at least 60 Flock cameras were inadvertently streaming live footage from security cameras to the open internet. Now, different model of camera, but same company. And these cameras included the feeds that were being shown to the internet were things like parking lot footage of people loading potentially expensive purchases into their vehicles, isolated trails, people walking alone, and a playground with unaccompanied children to the open internet. In terms of compliance, one of the tools that Flock seems to offer is these network auditing reports that are supposed to tell you how your network has been searched and who's been searching it. And it has a reason field that's supposed to say why the search was made. Flock allows that reason field to have extremely generic words like investigation. It also allows that field to be blank. So you don't necessarily know why your system is being searched. A report from the University of Washington Center for Human Rights last year observed that despite Illinois and Virginia having strong restrictions on how ALPR data can be shared, and California banning the sharing of that data out of state altogether, those laws appear to have been, in their words, regularly violated. It's also worth noting that in the topic of claims that Flock makes about how their data can be accessed, the report had this to say: unlike all its major competitors in the ALPR market, Flock has refused to allow independent security analysts to test its devices to ensure that claims made by the company are accurate. Because of reasons like these, my concerns are not put to rest by Washington State's recent SB 6002 legislation, despite it offering important first steps in regulating ALPRs and their usage. I think that Issaquah's residents, visitors, and the people who work here deserve better than to be surveilled by an AI-powered camera system simply because they're coming and going. I think we know enough about the system, this company, these types of technologies to make a decision soon. I think the right thing to do is to say no to this proposal, and the right time is as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk?
May Hollingshead.
Thank you to the mayor and the council for hearing me. My name is May Hollinshead, and I'm a junior at Gibsonek High School. I am also an intern with Councilmember Walsh. As a part of this, we have been researching the issues that our city faces. Recently, the city of Issaquah was offered a significant amount of money from the federal government to install automated license plate readers, which have been repeatedly proven to be both intrusive and insecure. While some may say these cameras keep us safer, the cost of privacy is too high for these cameras to be a good option for our city. I ask that you all consider the voices of your community when you consider whether or not to accept this grant and install these cameras, as many of us that you have heard today believe that ALPRs are not the right path forward for Issaquah. Thank you all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
No one further has signed up to speak.
Okay. Is there anybody else in the room who hasn't signed up but would like to speak? Okay, not seeing any. Online, Madam Clerk, do we have any indication of anyone?
We have a few members of the public with us virtually, but I'm not seeing anything.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for everyone who did show up to comment. We appreciate getting the feedback. I think I did hear several people ask, like, what is the expected timeline? I think the challenge we've had for the city of Issaquah is our current chief of police is retiring, and we are in the process of, we will hire a new chief of police next month. And so I think the grant that's in question, which is for other safety equipment as well, which is tasers and flock, expires on September 30th. And so the current council agenda, I think, has August as the next touch point to go to services, safety, and parks. And then I think based on how that process goes would determine whether it comes to the full council or not. And I think what the city clerk has done is anybody who is interested in being updated, if that is the current published timeline, but I appreciate your guys' concerns. And if you want to be on a list, you can leave your email, and that will automatically have you included. If for some reason that date were to move forward or backward, I think the thought process from the city administration's perspective is get the new police chief hired next month and then decide of how the timing looks from there, because it's hard to basically do the process when you're in between police chiefs. And with that will close audience comments. And the next item on the calendar is the consent calendar. And I do not have any remarks on the consent calendar. Are there any committee chairs or chair designees who would like to report on the consent calendar items? Not seeing any. The consent calendar was distributed to the council in advance. If authorized, the items on the consent calendar will be considered together and approved by one motion. Have the payables and payroll been reviewed?
They have.
That is an affirmative. Does any council member want to remove any items from the consent calendar and consider it under regular business? Not seeing any. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move the consent calendar as published in the agenda today.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. And that passes unanimously. The next item of business is an exciting one. Regular business, City Hall purchase and sale agreement. Autumn, this is like your lifetime dream to present to the council to potentially take action on the purchase of a new City Hall. Autumn Monahan.
Thank you for that introduction, Mayor. Hello, council members. My name is Autumn Monahan. I'm the Administrative Services Director. I'm here with several friends tonight, including Jeannie Justice, our Administrative Services Manager, who's been just critical in supporting me throughout this effort, as well as several other staff who are here to help answer any questions. So I'm here tonight to present on a proposed purchase for a new City Hall. Administration's recommendation is to approve a purchase and sale agreement for a property at 1055 Northwest Maple Street for the amount of $12.975 million plus closing costs, and authorizing the mayor to execute a lease agreement and other documents necessary to complete the purchase. I will go through this very quickly just because I was before you only 2 weeks ago with this summary, so I'll be very quick. But this project has gone on for many years. We started this back in 2018 with our first space needs study being completed. I took this project on in 2023. At that time, council supported a phased approach with remodeling our police station first. That's the most essential first step. But the question was, where does City Hall go? If we're remodeling the building at 130 East Sunset Way exclusively for police use, we needed to find a home for City Hall. So at that point, council asked, go out to the community, engage with our residents to come back with some solutions. And so the city's largest task force to date at least that I'm aware of, got together and we had 7 or 8 meetings last year, and they really dove into the specifics on what Issaquah needed as far as space and made recommendations. And then just earlier this year, we moved the first piece of the puzzle in moving municipal court out of this building into a lease space with King County District Court. So the task force recommendations, there were several. The top priority that emerged even before we had our first meeting and we were just doing tours of the police station was we needed to address operational needs and space needs of our police department. And, task force members said, can we do that now? Like, how quickly can we actually pull that off? Once they took the tours and saw the state of just how squeezed our department is in trying to operate. But then again, what happens to City Hall? And so, we did share, we have been looking for properties to purchase and renovate, and it's been very, very difficult to find those in Issaquah. And so while the task force said, please do remain flexible and open to new opportunities, ultimately, we went down the path of looking at what it would cost to build a new City Hall, either at City Hall South, this property, or over at Pickering. Our project goals from the beginning, which council adopted in 2023, are to ensure safety, responsibly steward public dollars, provide community accessibility and convenience, support economic development, deliver enhanced community amenities, and embody environmental stewardship. So I was before you I think it was 2 weeks ago, in early April, with a new proposal from administration on what's next for our space needs. We do not recommend pursuing construction of a new City Hall at this time. We also recommend leveraging a councilmatic bond to pay for a police remodel and pay that debt service with public safety sales tax revenue. We also recommend temporarily retaining this building for police use during that remodel because we'll have a lot of shifting back and forth as we remodel that building. And then using one-time funds to purchase and renovate an existing building for City Hall use. A quick reminder, our estimate of cost for building a new City Hall, whether at this site or at Pickering, was anywhere from $44 to $57 million, and that was for a 35,000 square foot building. And the timeline would be anywhere from 3.5 to 4 years to pull that off. I mentioned there's a lack of inventory. We have been working with our broker, CBRE, for several years, looking for a property in Issaquah. There aren't any. So there are 24 office buildings in Issaquah that are anywhere between 10,000 and 40,000 square feet. And only 11 of those are 15,000 square feet or more. One of those buildings is City Hall Northwest, which the city sold last year, and the other is the building that I'm here tonight to propose that we purchase at 1055 Northwest Maple Street. So this property is also known as the Ednetics building to many in our community. It's an extremely rare off-market opportunity that recently became available. It's a property that we toured as staff even several years ago when it was only really available as an option to lease. So this is a very exciting opportunity for us. The property features 21,000 square feet of high-quality office space located in central Issaquah. It meets a lot of our goals for space needs, providing a cost-effective solution for where City Hall goes, allowing for us to quickly then start working on renovations for PD. It's located in central Issaquah. It's close to transit and open space. It has a really nice front counter, so it's really welcoming to our community as far as a place that we can offer customer service. And it's a really well-maintained building. Our facilities team has already been through it, and it's really been well-maintained over the years. It also offers a lot of flexible space in the years to come. The property, here's just a quick map just to orient you. The property, if you can kind of locate where Tibbetts Valley Park is, close to Parks, close to our future TOD project and close to the transit center. And like I said before, also located in central Issaquah. So on to the purchase and sale terms. The proposed price is $12.975 million. Under a proposed agreement, the seller would retain the use of their existing family office on the ground floor, which is about 4,400 square feet, through a 7-year lease. And the fair market value of this lease was factored in to the negotiated purchase price. The seller would pay the broker fees. The due diligence period is 20 days, which has already started. The earnest money is $500,000, which is also refundable within that due diligence period. The purchase and sale agreement and the lease are contingent upon City Council approval, which is why I'm here tonight. And we hope to close fairly soon, but it does have flexibility of closing within the longest we can go is 120 days following due diligence. Just quickly, in working with CBRE, we asked them to do some comparables of just what the price is for office space in this area. So they performed analysis and found that the average price in our area is about $725 per square foot, and this purchase is $609 per square foot. We have done a lot of space needs studies, as I mentioned in our timeline over the years. This building can accommodate City Hall staff in a hybrid model. The current office use that we need to move right away is the top floor of City Hall, the Eagle Room, and the top floor of this building. And that's only 12,600 square feet. If you're factoring in the lease for 7 years, we still have about 17,000 square feet with this opportunity. Our latest space planning found that, very much the top end of what we would need as far as square footage was 35,000 square feet. That included a significant amount of space for community use. And with the idea of a potential parks bond, which could offer some other opportunities for community meeting space, perhaps going to voters this year, that would be a good opportunity to also pursue how to best be creative in some of our other existing spaces to be used for community use. So the next step, if this is approved tonight, is hiring an architect for space planning. There's already been a lot of questions of who's going where and what would happen if this is approved. There would take some time and effort in looking at how we could best utilize that building and any tenant improvements we would need to make. So the budget for this project, the proposal is to use all one-time revenue that has been set aside specifically for our facility needs. The largest of that is the proceeds from our previous City Hall Northwest building, which we sold last year, as well as the food bank when we sold that property. The Lakeside Development Agreement set aside money specifically for facility use. We also have government mitigation fees saved up, and we have some interest earnings that could be used specifically for those tenant improvements, furniture, other things too. So in total, we have up to $16.3 million. Again, all that are in one-time funds. Our due diligence is 20 days. That has already started. That clock has started. We are reviewing the title, which we just recently received, all the permit information, information provided by the seller. We are also hiring a third-party company to come in and do a building condition assessment as well as a phase 1. Our major systems and building envelope will be reviewed, and the stormwater system on the adjacent parcel will also be looked at too. So the property is a little over 68,000 square feet. It is zoned urban core and is constrained by wetlands and stream buffers from the south and the east. Any further expansion or redevelopment of the property, which we're not recommending at this time, would be required to comply with the then current code requirements. Rezoning this property to community facilities, which is what our other properties are zoned at, any city property is, would also provide more flexibility for this site in the future if there was ever a need that we would want to remodel or to grow. So as for timing and next steps, like I said, we're very busy right now going through the due diligence period. Like I've shared with several folks, so far so good. Everything looks very well maintained on this building, but we'll be doing more of that work now. Following the closing, we would then finalize a move plan. So space planning, tenant improvements, furniture, come back to you with that plan and an update before proceeding with that work. And with that, here's your proposed motion, and I'm available, as well as some of my coworkers, to answer any questions.
Council President Martz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you tell me a little bit more under the diligence? Stormwater system on the adjacent parcel, what's that about?
So that was built when the building was first built. And so it's on a separate parcel that was part of a larger development that includes Target and a few other of the businesses in the area around there as more of a master plan. So when that building was built, there was an easement granted to build the stormwater retention on a separate site, and that the easement would also require for the property owner to maintain it.
Still confused. Is it a detention pond or a pump? What is it?
It is, you look at the exact,
Is it passive? Is it active?
it's passive.
Councilmember Adair.
Oh,
Are you looking up more information?
I am looking it up. Sorry, one
Okay.
sec.
Oh.
It's a biofiltration swale.
Is is this the parcel that's directly to the east of it?
Yes.
It's like a little triangular corner
Yes.
piece? Okay. So why is that why is that part of our due diligence? What are we?
We're just looking at, has it been maintained? What will it take to maintain in the future?
But is that part of what we'd be buying?
No, but the easement is that we would maintain it, even though it's not on our property.
I see.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Adair.
You mentioned rezoning it for community facilities, added more flexibility. What kind of flexibility does that add exactly?
Yeah, I'm going to phone a friend. We have our community planning and development director, Minnie, online.
Minnie, your phone's ringing.
Hello, everyone. This is Minnie Dhaliwal, Community Planning and Development Director here. In terms of flexibility, it ties to anything that it doesn't currently comply with our regulations. If it is zoned community facilities, CFF, then because it's public's investment in that infrastructure or building, there is a little bit more leeway in terms of what it can and cannot do in terms of expansion or continued use or anything that doesn't comply with the code. So it provides more flexible path for doing some of those things for public buildings. Does that
Deputy-
help answer your question?
I mean, a bit. I mean, more flexibility. I was just saying more concrete, just like we can expand it beyond our codes would normally allow, or I'm just not quite sure what that flexibility is. But obviously, this is a long-range issue. We're not doing it right now. I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's more generic and more broad than specific things what you can and cannot do. So it gives a big discretion as a policy, and some of these buildings are like the community center, the senior center, so a lot of public investments have gone into it, but codes change over time, and so they're looked at a little bit more leniently because of public's investment. But it isn't one thing or two things, it's much more broad in terms of what the flexibility can be granted under those provisions.
Deputy President Jay.
Great. So on one of the previous slides, you showed that the amount of one-time funds we have is about 16 million, and the cost of the new city hall is about 13 million. What's the plan for that 3 million to be spent on?
Yeah, I'll bring up that slide again. So right now, we know the cost of the building. So next would be looking at tenant improvements, space planning, what would be needed to actually move into the building. I don't anticipate it's going to cost that much, but was sharing with you all the different options we have as far as budget.
And so if we don't spend the full amount of money, could that money be applied to, say, the police improvements that we talked about, or, other facility needs like HVAC and other city facilities or things like that?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Well, in autumn, you forgot to mention it comes with a generator. Very exciting. Councilmember Walsh.
Thank you. In looking at this on Google Maps, it appears that Spring Hill Suites, the access to their garage is through perhaps a shared driveway. Is that part of a right-of-way or something that we would maintain?
It is part of an easement, so that is part of the, some of that title information that we just received, but yes, it is shared.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Cho.
Thank you. Autumn, appreciate all the hard work you've done over the years on this. It's exciting to see that we're near a possible conclusion. I had a question about the due diligence plans and whether or not that included an assessment of the parking lot, the pavement condition, any of the deterioration that might be there, if you could comment on that.
Yes, part of the review from that third-party company that I mentioned will include assessment of the pavement. There are some areas of cracking, and there was an assessment done in 2021 that says that at some point it will need some maintenance. But we also know some folks who can do that too, so.
I appreciate that. I know that those of us that were here when it was first built know that it was primarily a wetland and wet soil, and we hope that no serious settling has occurred, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you for doing that.
All right. I'm not seeing any other questions. There's no further, well, I guess I would look to see if there's a motion. Council President Martz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve a purchase and sale agreement with DWP LLC to purchase the property known as King County Tax Parcel 2824069326, 1055 Northwest Maple Street, for the amount of $12,975,000 plus closing costs, and authorize the mayor to execute a lease agreement with DWP LLC and other documents necessary to complete the purchase.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Council President Martz.
So this property has been known, there's been a parallel effort for the last 20 years to look at a human services campus. And this property was well known to a lot of us back in the days when we were looking for a human services campus, because we were really excited about it. We couldn't make it work 20 years ago. The search for a human services campus, unfortunately, continues on. But this is really exciting. This is at a great price. 13 million. I'm not a rocket scientist anymore, but I'm pretty sure that 13 million is a lot less than 47 million. So this would be really good. We would have to be, creative in using the space. The Capital Facilities Task Force came up with good estimates, and those, we'll have to find other places for community engagement. Fortunately, the city has a lot of spaces for community engagement. And, in a time of very careful finances, doing this is as frugal of a space as we can possibly imagine getting anywhere. So I just really appreciate the administration's effort to go out and find this opportunity. It wasn't like it wasn't on, Zillow, but you found it and came up with a creative solution to it. So kudos to everybody involved, and I am a strong, I will strongly, proudly support this evening.
Deputy President Jang.
Great. Well, first of all, I want to give massive kudos to Autumn and our broker team at CBRE for getting this deal done. This, as Council President Martz mentioned, this is not on Zillow. The seller didn't actually really want to sell that much, and so it took a lot of persistence from Autumn and everyone involved to get to this deal, which, in my opinion, is a great deal for Issaquah. It's $13 million, which is a lot less than, the $50 million that it could have cost. We're saving, $40 million of taxpayer money, if I'm doing the math correctly, which is really great. Especially given, we've seen in some neighboring communities, they've tried to, pass a bond to build a new city hall, failed, and now they're trying to figure out what to do. I think that this, given that we already have the money from selling off City Hall Northwest, which, by the way, if you're exiting the highway off exit 15, you can see it's very much under construction right now. So we got rid of that and got this new, beautiful office building. Councilmember Nichols and I had the opportunity to tour it on Saturday. It's very, very nice, so it's very exciting. Another thing that I'm really excited about with this space is that it's a lot bigger than our current space, so that gives us the opportunity to, move some of the folks who are currently in spaces that previously were community spaces like Tibbetts Manor into City Hall. We earlier heard from someone who had the opportunity to get married in Tibbetts Manor. I got married last summer. I actually was like, that would be a cool venue because it's so close to my house, but it's no longer available for use as a wedding venue. So perhaps with this new City Hall, that could be a possibility. But with community spaces, we have these, cool buildings around the city that are currently used for office space that could be transformed into community space, so that's really exciting as well. One point I do want to raise, though, on the rezoning is that I want to be cautious about potentially rezoning to community facilities, because last year we had this discussion of, do we actually want to get rid of this category of zoning altogether, community facilities, because when we sold City Hall Northwest, we had to rezone the property to basically like office space, something like that, to be able to sell it to someone who is not the city. And so that adds basically a 1-year timeline to, selling any property, given the state of the world, the market would crash in that amount of time. So that actually reduces flexibility from the perspective of, selling city property. So that's something that I want to be very intentional about if we choose to pursue. Also, I don't really love this concept that, we can create our own zone and then set our own rules for ourselves, and then, that are less stringent than for other people in the city. I don't think that necessarily sends the right message, but that's a kind of further discussion for the future. For tonight, I'm very, very excited to vote yes on buying this new City Hall and, moving forward with that.
Excellent. Councilmember Dare.
I just wanted to add and also commend the administration for the work that went into this. I actually, in my appointment speech, talked about this issue. I got here, part of the way was through the task force on this issue, saw the police station, saw the problems that they had and how urgent that was, but recognized how difficult a solution this was going to be because of the cost to find a new city hall and to build one. And because there was no inventory, the only way is to build, but the costs were so astronomical. And in my speech, wanted to, us to work hard to find a solution, and I'm just amazed that a solution is already here. And I toured it today as well, and just saw, could see the future of what this will be, of such a great space, as well as the how we'll finally fix the police station problems and all the things that are there. So I just really wanted to commend the administration for this work and how excited I am to be here and already be saying yes to this and having this problem finally actually addressed. So thank you all for all the work you did on this.
All right. Councilmember Joe.
Thank you. I saw that our finance director left before I could make this comment, but I want to give kudos and appreciation to the administration and the mayor for this purchase. It's an all-cash purchase. We're not going into debt to buy this building. The voters, our citizens, are not being asked to approve any new funding for this. The money that is there, we've squirreled away over the years from different government mitigation activity, the sale of the food bank down the street. And so by saving and planning, we were able to seize this opportunity when it became available at no additional debt cost to our citizens. So I really want to thank the administration, the mayor for making that happen and saving this money over time so that we could wait until we had an opportunity that could really make sense. I'm fully in support of it this evening.
You should know Kristen does rewatch all positive comments about her department. So. Councilmember Nichols.
I'll be brief, yeah. I think the space looks really great, and critically, as has been mentioned multiple times, it's also cost effective. There are some novel aspects to this deal that clearly required some good creativity and I think show really good thinking to solve what has been a well-known problem for quite some time. So to reuse a word that's been used multiple times, kudos to the staff, and I really look forward to seeing this deal go through. I also, just briefly on zoning, I don't think we need to address this issue even soon necessarily. If I understand the responses from staff today correctly, looking at the space, it does look like it'll be suitable for quite some time, and I think we can delay that to a future date when, for example, we're looking at zoning in this area overall, or if it otherwise comes up. So I'll also be voting yes, and kudos to the staff.
Councilmember Walsh.
Agree. I don't have anything else to add. Just glad to see that we are addressing this issue and are able to move forward. Thank you.
If there is no further discussion, the motion before the council is to approve a purchase and sale agreement with DWP LLC to purchase a property known as King County Tax Parcel 282-406-9326, 1055 Northwest Maple Street for the amount of $12,975,000 plus closing costs, and authorize the mayor to execute a lease agreement with DWP LLC and other documents necessary to complete the purchase. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. And that passes unanimously. Now, you should know, I did suggest we have champagne, but our city administrator, Wally, said we're not allowed to have champagne on the dais, and so that was rejected. But on we go to the next business item. And ID 1993, new business request, public reporting on immigration enforcement activity. The March 16th City Council meeting, Councilmember Nichols presented this new business item. The City Council voted to forward this item the next step in the process, which is a preliminary staff response. We're going to ask City Administrator, the Assistant to the City Administrator, Dale Markey Crimp, to provide the staff response. I think Dale is coming in by the cloud. There's Dale.
I am. Can you all hear me loud and clear?
We can.
Awesome. I can see the nods. Good evening, Mayor Mullet, members of the City Council. I'm Dale Markey Crimp, Assistant to the City Administrator, coming to you over the airwaves this evening. I'm here to introduce the administration's response to the new business item ID 1933, public reporting on immigration enforcement activity. And as you can see on the screen, Police Chief Polishwan is also here with me this evening and will be able to answer any questions you might have. So in response to this new business item, the administration is recommending that the police department implements a new computer-aided dispatch, or CAD code, to capture community-reported federal immigration enforcement activity, as well as recommending that they include a monthly summary of calls in the city's public-facing police department monthly report. An attachment which shows a mock-up of that report is included in the council materials this evening. We believe both of these actions will support transparent sharing of confirmed incidents within city limits. A bit of background on this, Mayor Mullet already mentioned, Councilmember Nichols submitted a new business request at the March 16th meeting regarding the city's reporting on federal immigration enforcement activities within city limits. The city already reports on its own law enforcement activity, and as noted in Councilmember Nichols' request, the city does track and report some data related to immigration status. But this information on U visa and T visa certification requests is shared at the request of the person requesting that information from our police department in order to apply for particular types of immigration visas. This information differs significantly from federal immigration enforcement activity, which is activity conducted by federal agencies and not reported to or controlled by the city. So it's really challenging to track and report on federal immigration enforcement, primarily due to the legal framework that governs federal and local authority in the United States. Under the Constitution, specifically the Supremacy Clause, federal agencies are able to enforce federal law nationwide, and they operate independently of local jurisdictions. So to put that more succinctly, federal authorities aren't required to notify or cooperate with or even provide any information to local jurisdictions about their activities. So the city doesn't have a reliable data source that they can just go to confirm federal immigration enforcement that happens within Issaquah. However, we do have an awesome community, and the administration recognizes that the community is interested in transparency and deeply desires to know about federal movement within our community as much as they can. And to address this, the administration and our police department needs their help. So what the administration is recommending is that the police department, as they already have, creates a new dispatch code. So there's a new code now that dispatchers can use when a community member calls 911 to report suspected federal immigration enforcement activity or concerns related to federal immigration authority. Dispatchers will dispatch officers to investigate. We're also going to rely on that community reported data with this code the police department is going to be able to systematically log, track, and analyze these calls over time and understand where activity is taking place. And then with this code, this will allow for all of any calls and activity to be reported out in a monthly report. And so you can see in attachment A in your materials, our crime prevention analyst has already modeled up what this would look like, adding a number of calls related to ICE activity in the monthly report. I want to emphasize that this reporting will only reflect what is reported via 911 dispatch to the Issaquah Police Department. Officers will then report to the scene, and if they can, they'll confirm what's happening. However, again, due to the independent authority of federal agencies and the absence of a requirement to notify the city of their actions, the city cannot always independently verify or comprehensively track all federal enforcement activity. They will do their best, they will show up at the scene, they will investigate, but please know that a federal immigration officer could say nothing. They don't have to say anything. The CAD code has been created. The police department is actually already using it to code appropriate calls, and the department's data analyst has already included the number of calls related to this CAD code in the Marsh report. This is the administration's recommendation moving forward, and there's no further council action needed tonight if this satisfies the business request. However, included in the materials for this evening are a couple other options, and I will turn it over to the council for questions and consideration.
Okay, I'm looking. Is there
No
additional
questions, but I have a motion.
Yep.
Thank you.
Councilmember Marsh.
I move the City Council direct the administration collect data related to community-reported federal immigration enforcement activity to the public-facing Police Department monthly report, including how many federal immigration activities were able to be confirmed.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Discussion.
Thank you. I appreciate, first of all, that the city administration has been able to respond to this. I think this is a great example of a new business request item where a city council member was able to recognize that there was a community need around clear, public, transparent information about any reported federal immigration activity in the community. And so having that transparency be able to be included in a monthly police report is important. My concern in just stopping at that point and not also reporting out on any confirmed activities may lead people to believe that there were that many different activities in the community when there may be 15 or 20 people reporting for a single event. And so I have added to this basically saying that I would like us to also report how many of those federal immigration activities were able to be confirmed, because that will provide the public a little bit more information. I recognize that the federal administration does not have to say anything when our officers go out, but it is important for us to be able to show not only that we are receiving these reports, but that we are going out and responding to them, and that if we can confirm or disconfirm, see that something is not a federal immigration activity, then that allows us to provide additional public information to the community.
Councilmember Adair.
Yeah, I want to echo the same comments from Councilmember Walsh, and that I think this is a start, but similarly in like the sample version that was sent, it simply just said ICE related reports, which I don't feel is enough information, since that can just simply be how many people called, and obviously we want to know what was actually an event, what was just people thought it was, but that's not the case, as well as how many people were potentially detained at said event. I feel like there is more data to be obtained, that this is a good start. You now have a mechanism to start tracking it, But I do think this is a step towards what we need to do, and that there needs to be continued work to get all the data we need. Because if you look at one of the monthly reports that the police does have, there's multiple pages going into all sorts of things of the different types of offenses and breaking it down by all sorts of types. So we regularly supply more data than just the reports, and I would like that same level of data to be applied to this.
Council President Marks.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the administration if they feel they'd be able to achieve this.
Yes. Ms. Markey Crimp has had conversations with Councilmember Walsh this afternoon, and I think we'll be able to add an additional line. Is that correct?
Yes, we should be able to add an additional line if the number of calls is above 1, and then we confirm or disconfirm. I think both Councilmember Walsh and I will find a better word than disconfirm, but we'll be able to expand on that. And if it becomes a situation, Councilmember Adair, where that number is 10, 15, 20, and we get to the point where we have that volume of calls coming in, I could see us doing something similar to what we did years ago by adding more detail to theft. In that report, we sort of originally only reported on crime types, and then we sort of drilled down on theft, especially when shoplifting was particularly high. So I think the report can morph and grow as we have more data. But if the call number is 0, I think we'll see that line. But if the call number rises above 0, we'll add at least that second confirmed incident. I believe we can do that.
Thank you for that. This is obviously an incredibly charged issue, and I'm from Minneapolis, so I've seen this issue, tear at the hearts of our communities. But I think that this is a good. We are a data-driven city, and our IPD is data-driven, and so I think this is a good step to try to understand what's going on in our community better. While still, in a difficult situation, getting more data in a way that doesn't hamper the IPD, but allows the community to understand better what's happening is a really smart move going forward. Thank you.
Councilmember Nichols.
Thank you. I want to first speak to the underlying business item, and then I'll speak to the motion itself. So I want to start by thanking the chief and the staff for the thoughtful response to this new business request. When I raised this back in March, not that long ago either, so this is a quick turnaround as well. I wasn't really sure what was going to be possible. As was pointed out, federal immigration enforcement is by design a federal function, and the staff report lays out clearly why the city can't just pull those numbers from federal agencies. So what I appreciate here is that the staff got creative, creating a new CAD code, which is not a term I had ever heard of before reading this, so I appreciate learning that as well, to capture community reported activity, and then going back through the existing ones to see what can be recorded. Strikes me as a practical solution to a problem that has legitimate, or that has real constitutional limits built into it. And as we've seen, I think tonight as well, this matters because residents are asking us what's happening in their community. And even when we can't confirm this federal activity, being able to say, here's what residents are reporting and here's what our officers are seeing when they respond is a good step. So I'm pleased to see this moving forward, and I want to thank staff again. Specifically on Councilmember Walsh's motion, I will speak to the support of that as well. I think it clarifies the data in a useful way. I'm glad to hear that it is feasible from the perspective of staff. And of course, with all of these data, we are aware they are going to be imperfect. So we will know that, respect that, and treat them appropriately. But I think more data in this area is always going to be useful. So I appreciate both the staff's efforts to make this happen, and I also support Councilmember Walsh's motion to improve it further.
All right, okay. Saying no further discussion, motion for the council is to direct the administration to collect data related to the community reported federal immigration enforcement activity to the public-facing police department monthly report, including how many federal immigration activities were able to be confirmed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. And that passes unanimously. The next item of business is an exciting one. It's regular business to appoint the council vacancy that was left when previous council president Barb Michelle had to step down. And so the April 7th special city council meeting, the city council heard presentations from 8 applicants to the city council position number 3. Following the presentations and deliberations, the city council moved Donovan Richards and Erica Boyd forward to the second round of interviews, which will occur tonight. Tonight's meeting, the applicants will be interviewed one at a time and asked the same series of questions. Applicants, we would like to request that you step into the side room off the lobby until it's your turn to be interviewed so that you do not hear the questions in advance. And once you complete your interview, you're welcome to stay in the room. After the interviews, the city council will go into executive session, which is a closed session where they can discuss the qualifications of the applicants. After the closed session, we will reopen the public meeting. The city council is then expected to vote to make the appointment tonight. That person will then be sworn in and take a seat at the dais. And I'd like to ask the applicants to head into the lobby now. I think Cassidy is back there. Go to Cassidy. Then, Council President, would you like to discuss the questions or interview timing with the City Council before we begin the interviews? Let's wait for Cassidy to close the doors. They are now closed.
Thank you. So Deputy Council President and I developed these questions to continue the spirit of the previous set of questions without having them be identical to the previous set of questions, to get some unique answers out of folks, and worked through this a while back, but are certainly open to, if anybody feels any of these are head scratchers or have any concerns about them, we have the opportunity to change them right now.
I'm looking. We don't see any objections. We're going to go with the 5 questions as you currently have them. The order, which was drawn completely randomly, is going to be Donovan Richards first, Erica Boyd second. And
can I also add, there was a conversation about how many minutes we wanted to offer, and conversations about going up or down or whatever, but at the previous time we offered 20 minutes. Every single candidate did it all in much faster than 20 minutes. So we felt we didn't want to move that number, even because we only had 2 candidates, offer the same number.
Okay, so 20 minutes. Councilmember Walsh.
Up to.
Up to, I like it.
Yes. How are we asking these questions? Sometimes we've done a round robin, sometimes it's just been council president or mayor, just trying to determine.
I'm not asking any questions.
I'd be happy to just have us cycle through. I mean, there's 2 people times 5 questions, so there's 10 questions. So some people will get 2, and that's fine. And we can start with our.
I was going to say, what's the cycle? Because I didn't do this before. So
the person who's most recently been on the firing line, I think, should probably start. Well, I asked the first question.
Okay, and so, Madam Clerk, are you grabbing Donovan Richards? Ooh, extra security. I like it. David Kaplan, you're blocking. Are we having him go there or up there? Your call. There. Welcome, Donovan. We're going to have you go up on this side. I think your council is going to take turns asking you 5 questions. Councilmember Adair is going to go first, and you've been allocated ample time. So it's normally I think these have taken roughly 10 or so minutes, but we allocate more than that just in case it goes longer. And we are going to start Councilmember Adair.
All right, I'm first. All right, this question has kind of 2 parts to it, so I'm going to ask the whole question. So, Which goal or objective in the Issaquah strategic plan do you consider most critical to the success of the city and why? And how would you address this goal or objective? And I can repeat the question if you need to.
Could you repeat it? Just
Sure. Which goal or objective in the Issaquah strategic plan do you consider most critical to the success of the city and why? And how would you address this goal or objective?
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so in this strategic plan, I would say the goals and objectives that surround housing as well as kind of the diverse and equitable services and just having Issaquah be a place that is for everyone would be, in my mind, the most important objective. I truly believe that the concept of DE&I, the diversity, equity, and inclusion, is a in the business realm. The whole fact that it exists is because it gets to better outcomes from a business perspective. But I think the same applies from a community perspective. We can't solve problems if we all have the same background and same ideas, and being able to have a welcoming place where there is a diverse amount of people that call this place home and that want to be contributing to this place and the local community life that we have gives us the ability to think outside of the box, have multiple perspectives, and find those solutions to the problems that we all experience that we might otherwise not think about. So that would be the goal or objective. How do we go about doing that? Well, part of that requires, the affordability piece. Socioeconomic status is an important element of diversity here, and if it's too expensive to live here for a certain amount of people that are wanting to be here, then we don't have that diverse perspective. I think that also needs to be represented in leadership, that we have voices that are in leadership that could speak to those concerns and issues. So, any considerations about, appointing people or leadership in the city, I think that the diversity component is a really important part of that, that I would want to be working toward. And I think the third part about this too is more on the messaging side. There's a lot of good things that are already happening in the city that not necessarily everyone knows about. So being able to find ways to get that message out when there are opportunities for community-based conversations and opportunities for community-based get-togethers and community building, being able to tell that story in a compelling way that gets people excited to be going to Issaquah, get us more salmon days sort of a thing, is always a good thing. So that's at a high level, the first thoughts that come to me on that.
Excellent. And now we're going to go to Councilmember Nichols for question number 2.
Thank you, and I'm also happy to repeat this question. The community says that public safety is important. What do you consider the critical public safety challenges for the city, and how might you hope to address them in your first term on council?
Could you repeat it again? I'm just writing it down.
Yep.
Make sure I get it all.
The community says that public safety is important. What do you consider the critical public safety challenges for the city, and how might you hope to address them in your first term on council?
Okay. I do want to use this question to give you a little bit of a background around how I tend to think about complicated, multifaceted questions like this, because, I do come from the consulting world, and there is a theory called stakeholder theory that is, in a business sense, when you make decisions, you have to account for all the stakeholders that are impacted by this decision, not just the shareholders, the ones that need to make money. And I've been really influenced by a British economist, actually, who wrote a book called Donut Economics. And it's been one of my guiding considerations when it comes to how to make decisions where there's complicated factors to this. And the basic argument here is that you need to run through any particular consideration with a couple of lenses. One being, what's the social floor, where if you go below that floor, then you're hurting people. And that's an absolute no in any sort of decision that I'd want to make or help influence and make. The other is the ecological ceiling, and that goes to more to resources. If you cut down our entire forests to build houses, you no longer have forests and you've gone above the ecological ceiling. So when I'm thinking about decisions, I'm thinking about that median, that middle ground where we've reached and met the basic needs, but we're not going too far to the point where we're hurting the natural resources or the community of our city in any way. Beyond that, the questions that I then need to ask are around like equity and access. Who's included in this? Who is this impacting? I want to ask the flourishing test. How is this helping us thrive, not just survive? And then there's an accountability component to the decision making as well. How do we know that what the decision that we made was successful? So when it comes to public safety, we've had a big discussion about that today when it comes to the flock cameras. I want to make those considerations. So what's the social floor? How do we are making sure that we're meeting our basic needs? The right to privacy is a basic need that we all have and all need to be considering. So, right there, that puts a really hard question on whether or not to go forward with flock cameras, for example. But even larger, for any sort of public safety considerations, how we are deploying our police force and how we want them to engage in our community. Are we making sure that those engagements are meeting the community's basic needs, and from an equity and access standpoint are consistent regardless of who's engaging with public safety? I think at a broader level, I am more on the side of, there's two parts to public safety, right? There's the work required to bring about justice, so the policing work that's done after the fact, but then there's also the work beforehand, before something becomes a public threat. And I think we tend to think more about, adding resources to the after the fact component, where I think the consideration needs to be to the before component as well. And what ways could we continue to invest in the programs required to help people and help people in ways that they don't then feel like they need to be engaging in any of the actions that might put them down on, in the categorization of being a part of the public safety threat that we're talking about. So in that sense, I would certainly be against flock cameras, and I would also be trying to put forward considerations for, social programs and other organizational-based, community-based opportunities that can, put people on the right path before, we have to get to the justice component of policing on the back half. Does that answer your question, Councilmember Nichols?
And then the third question, just a time check, we're at 9 minutes, so there's 11 minutes left for the last three questions. And Councilmember Joe.
I'll go faster.
Thank you. Given that you would be appointed to council without having run a campaign for a contested seat, how would you go about learning what's important to the Issaquah constituents?
Yeah, great question. I am an incredibly curious person. I feel like that's one of my superpowers. I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything like that, but I'm always reading a book. So first and foremost, if there's a book about it, I want to read it. I think I've already read 30 books this year. But I recognize that not everything is in a book. So beyond that, I think the second component to, getting up to speed is going to be having conversations, grabbing coffee with anyone and everyone that has a point of view that I have yet to experience. I love having one-on-one conversations. I love asking questions. I love hearing people's stories, and I would want to do that. And I think the third component to that is firsthand experience. It is going to the events. It's being in the community and just being in the space. And there would be a commitment to advancing and having more opportunity to do that solo, but also with my family when we have family-based events that I can bring my kids and my wife to as well. So that would be my approach there.
Excellent. Councilmember Walsh.
Thank you. What do you see as the biggest challenge facing Issaquah, and how would you propose addressing it?
Yeah, the biggest challenge in my mind is housing and affordability. You know, I spoke a little bit last time around about my friend who's, you know, above the median income, who's unable to buy a house in Issaquah, really wants to but can't. And just the thought, again, if we go back to, you know, community for all people, if, you know, more than half of King County can't afford to live here, then that needs to be considered, how we can make that more accessible for more people. So what do we do from a housing standpoint? I'm mindful that, you know, there are some, you know, big picture ideas that would cost a lot of money and that would take a lot of time and, you know, might be harder to do, but there also might be some easier and quicker wins that we can do as well. So I think in my mind, one thing is to be thinking about in what ways can we make those quick wins easier, in what ways can we reduce like permitting friction for, you know, additional like accessory dwelling units within current housing. You know, thinking through in what ways we can think through our zoning and see if there's ways to include some teeth in the zoning to make sure that when housing is being built, it's being built across all income levels so that there is accessibility across the board, and doing some of the work when we think about the you know, my donut economics thing here and my decision lenses, thinking about like how to measure that and how to make sure that, you know, for the King County averages, you know, are we making sure that we have accessible housing across the board there? I think some of the bigger ideas that take a lot more work and a lot more thing out there, I'm really interested in like the concept of a community land trust model where you kind of divorce the cost of the land from the cost of the house to make that a bit more affordable for people. But yes, those are just some options, but largely that's the critical challenge that I see is making sure that the people who want to live here can live here, because again, that'll help us all from a flourishing community standpoint.
All right, excellent. And Deputy President Chang, last question.
Great, last question. If appointed to the Issaquah City Council, what would you uniquely bring to the council that would make us better?
Yeah, good question. So I come from the consulting world, and I do want to note that one of the things about coming from the consulting world is that I had to take a new project every couple of weeks. We had quick burn projects where I had to jump around from topic to topic, and I had to get up to speed fast. I'm mindful that serving on council means that you have to jump around a lot across different topics that apply to the city, and it takes a lot of work to, you know just enough to be dangerous across the board. And as a consultant, I had to do that every day, jumping around from different clients, different technologies, different service models, etc. I think the other element that I can bring to the table here is my background, my educational background. My background in philosophy, teaching adjunct and business ethics, it's given me a chance to kind of pursue questions from all angles, recognizing that there's always a push and pull, that you can't give everyone a win at all times, but that's why I want to consider, the donut economic, that kind of safe and just equilibrium where any decision that I make not only, takes us above the social floor, but also doesn't push us beyond the ecological ceiling where we're in that safe and just space. And yeah, I mean, I fully buy into the strategic plan that the City of Issaquah has, and I'd love to serve with you if at all possible. And I appreciate your time and just thank you that I'm here.
Excellent, very well done. And I will say, I finished my last book over the weekend. So, what's your favorite of the 30 books you read this year?
Great question. So I read The Grapes of Wrath finally.
Oh.
I hadn't read that one yet, so that was really good. And then The Ecology of Freedom by a philosopher. I'd have to go look up his name again, but that was really interesting point of view in terms of community-based interdependence and trying to recognize the fact that like we need each other, and to be free doesn't mean to be separated from people, but it means to bring what you have to the table and to be able to encourage each other toward the common goal that you might all have. So that was a really good book.
Oh, excellent. Okay, you do not have to go back in the other room. You can hang out here, and we will have the city clerk. Do we have some sort of bat signal? The bat signal is you just walk back to the room. Oh, wait.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Don. Okay, Erica, the way it works, you will get 5 questions. We're going to start with Councilmember Nichols and with Council President Martz. And the total time is 20 minutes. Like I said, not required to go the full 20, but you do have that option. And with that, let's start with Councilmember Nichols. Oh, we're going okay, switching direction. We're going to end with Kevin and start with Council President Martz. Would have been the same 5. Kevin, Russell. Oh, okay.
Sorry, I wasn't clear when we discussed it before.
Council President Martz, you get question number 1. So then Deputy President Jang gets, okay, I'm tracking.
Or we could just go with the same 5 people. Let's just go with the same 5 people asking the same 5 questions to get continuity as much as before, since otherwise I think it's a little confusing. If that's okay with you, Mr. Mayor.
Erica, don't worry, we're not charging you time for this conversation.
Is that okay with you, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, that is fine.
Rather than try to figure it out right now. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Adair.
Then I'm first. All right, here we go. All right, this question is 2 parts, and I can repeat it as needed, okay? Which goal or objective in the Issaquah strategic plan do you consider most critical to the success of the city and why? And the second part, how would you address this goal or objective?
Thank you for your patience with me. Can you all hear me? Awesome. Sometimes if I write things down, I'll hold it in my brain a little. As I think through it, I'll lose the question potentially. So we have a really well-built strategic plan, and I know a lot of that is because of how community informed it is. For me, I'm gravitating most towards socioeconomic vitality. I really think that is such a good measure and pulse across the entire city. It has multiple touch points on things like how well our businesses are doing and the jobs that are anchored here, to housing, and to human services, which for me will be a big priority of mine, should I be appointed to this vacancy. And so a second question was, how would I address it? I think housing really is an anchor of socioeconomic vitality. When you have enough housing that's built, it can help address so many other issues that the city is looking to resolve. But I know housing is a really big one, and I might not be able to share specifics right at this moment, but it's something we've heard again and again from our community that needs to be addressed. The city, I know, has looked at this issue multiple ways and multiple times. We've identified the place where we would like to build up within the Central Issaquah Regional Growth Area, and yet we don't have development there. So I think the biggest lever we can pull to boost our socioeconomic vitality is building, and I don't want to leave any stone unturned in trying to solve that.
Okay, excellent. Councilmember Nichols.
Thank you, Erica. The community says that public safety is important. What do you consider the critical public safety challenges for the city? And how might you hope to address them in your first term on council? And I'm happy to repeat that if it's helpful.
So what do I consider within public safety the critical challenges? How would I address that? When I was reviewing different documents in preparation for this, I noticed that within the Issaquah Community Survey, public safety really gets high marks. And I know regionally, post-COVID, crime trends are going down depending on what kind it is. I know that from the community survey, we are consistently ranked as safe. And so I need to think a little more about how I would specifically address it, but I know for certain what I would do is what I can to maintain the level of safety that gets such high marks in our feedback from the community. I'm also very conscious. I shared my story in my earlier presentation a couple weeks ago. My mom is in law enforcement. She has been since I was a very small child, and I'm very proud of her career. I grew up actually playing with a box of toys on the department floor while she would finish up her reports, and if it's any indication of my age, one of the toys included a slinky and a koosh ball. But police technology has come so far since my mom started her career. She was writing paper tickets when I was a kid. And as we review technology, I want to make sure that safety, I want to take a good hard look and listen to the community about who feels safe, because I know that safety means different things for different people. And so my first step in addressing, should I be appointed, it's to do some deeper listening and dig into the data, and per my public administration background, look at what problem we're trying to solve. I'll look into what aspects of public safety are we maybe not getting such high marks on in our feedback from the community? But I know overall, we do a pretty good job. And so I don't want to do anything to dismantle that.
Excellent. Councilmember Joe.
Given that you would be appointed to council without having run a campaign for a contested seat, how would you go about learning what's important to Issaquah constituents?
Thank you for the question. I am very cognizant that I would not have door knocking opportunities until I so choose. I won't leave that unattended, potentially, just because I'm not running doesn't mean that I can't go and talk to my neighbors. I know it's a little unique, but I really believe in meeting the community where they're at, and I know that this works from my work within my professional job. We put together, I help support the building of the state's first perinatal through 25 youth behavioral health strategic plan, getting multiple state agencies all rowing in the same direction to address something that's been identified as a really high need within our state, and I know it is here in this community as well, but we were most successful, especially in getting the voices from the exact demographics that the plan was hoping to address, youth, when we went to the places they were at, like different fairs, plugging into different committees they were already attending, or youth events, mental health fairs. And so for me, with the consent and the permission of the community, I would be attending things like that, whether it's the Latino Circle, or I'm already a avid lover of our farmers market, and I know that city council members have posted up there before to talk to the community, and would continue to just keep my ear to the ground as best as I can. And I know beyond knocking on doors and things, just looking at the community feedback portions of all of the plans we have, the community survey that we do each year, and as well as we get good feedback from our boards and commissions. I know when I've been on tab for a few years now, currently the chair, and we've had city council members just come in and listen, and it's always really great being on those boards and having that acknowledgement, and just being able to, I think council members can get a different perspective when they attend those, and I would commit to doing that as much as I can.
Excellent. Councilmember Walsh.
Thank you. What do you see as the biggest challenge facing Issaquah, and how would you propose addressing it?
I touched on this earlier, but for certain, I think housing. I think we have an identified area that we want to build in, and yet we're having some difficulty. So I'm encouraged by the earlier council retreat that happened this year, just the enthusiasm to come at this from different angles and take into account that so much work has already been done, various reports. I'm really encouraged by, I think it's the Raftelis report that identified ways to make the permitting process easier, more streamlined. I know other cities have had success with that too, and I would do what I could to make sure we keep that great pace that we're, I think, really finding now. And my kudos goes out to the city staff with that. I'd be focused on what's within this the city's control to incentivize development, especially for workforce housing, which can also address a lot of other, if your workforce is able to live where they work, that can address things like congestion, which I know is another big challenge for the city that I've definitely heard as on my time on tab. And I'm curious what more the city can do, how we can look into our code provisions to increase the diversity of our housing types. In my last presentation to the city, I mentioned wanting to build more housing, but build housing that's easier for folks to connect to their neighbors. And I know that the financial feasibility of cottage housing, courtyard apartments in different zones, we might have to pull some other levers like parking in order to make that a reality. And I certainly don't want the perfect to get in the way of the good, but I know that I think we can do both. I think we can densify and build housing and make it really enjoyable to live in.
Excellent. And the last question, Deputy President Jang.
Great. Last question. If appointed to the Issaquah City Council, what would you uniquely bring to the council that would make us better?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for allowing me to partake in this process. It's really been an honor. I have a unique set of skills from my professional experience working as a legislative assistant. I hear from folks daily about what they think is working for them from government, what they like to see more of. You typically don't hear a lot about what they think is working really well. I am cognizant of that. Oftentimes no news is good news, and I'm guilty of this myself. I remember driving over a filled-in pothole in my road and thinking, oh, this is great. I'm so happy the city fixed this, and of course I didn't say anything, so that's on me to practice some more gratitude there and put my money where my mouth is. But I bring with me deep listening skills. When I interact with constituents, members of the public, it's my goal to make sure that even if we disagree on an issue or what the issue even is or how to address it, I want that person to leave the conversation at least feeling heard, and ideally that they had a positive interaction with their government, especially in the age of automation or chatbots. They heard a real human listen to their concerns, and I bring that same spirit and ethos to any work on the council. As I mentioned earlier, I have lived experience with both my career and my personal lived experience of benefiting from government services, being on the Women, Infants, and Children program as an infant, which helped me grow. I've seen the benefit that government can have. And I also, relating to the human services realm, I want to do as much as I can to address, get folks pointed in the right direction, whether it's behavioral health, clothing. We know there's gaps identified within the human services plan. I mentioned earlier in my presentation a couple weeks ago that there's truly no greater joy than being able to be that conduit and connect someone with what they're seeking or what they need, or at least point them in the right direction. And I'd be looking for those glimmers and being able to create hope on the horizon in my time on council. I know what it's like to be able to have access to behavioral health resources. And and have a supportive community. I know there's folks out in Issaquah that are seeking that. We've got great city staff and resources that already point them in the right direction and wrap them around them with support that we can offer. And to the best of my ability, I want to keep my foot on the gas with that.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. And both Erica and Donovan, you guys did excellent. We are now going to go in executive session, qualifications appointment per RCW 42.30.110, parentheses 1, parentheses small h. Council will now go into executive session. The closed session is expected to take approximately 15 minutes. It may be extended. If the time is extended, the clerk will come down and make an announcement. The City Council is planning to act after the closed session as part of the open meeting to make an appointment. Executive sessions are closed to the public. Council members, the executive session will be held upstairs. We will now go into executive session at 9 o'clock, and the session will officially start in 5 or 10 minutes, somewhere in between there, whenever everyone's ready. And with that, we are now in executive session. Arseny, you're like ahead of us here. I like it. The red light is ready. Okay. We are back in open session at 9:22 p.m. At this point, the City Council can nominate individuals to the appointment. Are there any comments before the nominations are made? Council President Martins.
So this is probably a broken record at this point, but, I will say that this is always a tough decision, and, we got down to a smaller finalist pool this time than previous times. So in some senses, that ratchets the pressure up a little bit, but, look at the hallowed list of people who had not gotten appointed to City Council in the past and seen so many of them that went on to great things, like Bill Ramos and Mary Lou Pauley. So this is but one chapter in an ongoing conversation and an ongoing relationship with the city. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so are you ready to make nominations? Or as a reminder, nominees need to be made by one council member and seconded by another. Councilmember Joe.
Mayor Mullet, thank you. I would like to nominate Erica Boyd to fill our council vacancy for position number 2.
Councilmember Walsh.
Second.
Okay, there's been a nomination and a second. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Joe.
I want to thank both candidates for going through this process. As a former attorney, I know how hard it is to get up to that dais and to put your life out there for all the world to see and for people to scrutinize your answers or things you might not say. But I think that in this particular case, we have a need that we need to fill, which is a person that can fill a void that Barb DiMichele left us when we have the need to have a person that's keyed into community service and our nonprofit community and communicating with those that are less fortunate in our community in a way that lifts them up and will help us be a stronger council overall as we are more sensitive to the needs of our community along the way. And I think Erica fills that need. That's not to say that other candidates in the future might not be eligible or want to come forward, either in a process where there's a selection or an election in the future as well. But I fully support Erica's nomination and look forward to voting yes for her this evening.
All right. Not saying any other discussion. Are there any other nominations? Okay, so the first nominee is Erica Boyd. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of appointing Erica Boyd to council position number 3, please signify by saying aye. Please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
By a unanimous vote, Erica Boyd is now appointed to Issaquah City Council position number 3. Congratulations. We're going to do the oath of office next, but I will say, Donovan, I think Councilmember Joe pointed out at the farmers markets, 2 people we'd always see there very early on were you and Erica. So you guys may not have realized it, but your paths have been crossing, I guess, at farmers market Saturdays for quite a while, and we really appreciate you putting yourself out there for this process. You did an excellent job as well. And Erica, I'm going to meet you up front for the oath of office. So, yes, you got to raise your right hand. You know the drill. That's good. I state your name. Having been duly appointed to City of Issaquah Council Position Number 3, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of this office according to the law and to the best of my ability, that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the State of Washington and all local ordinances. All right, congratulations. Oh, got it. Let's do the photo. We'll do the photo first. Okay, now you can sign. You have to do both of those. We're gonna take a short break so we can do one group photo and then we will reconvene. Okay, we are now, whoa, wait, well, we're back in open session at 9:29. The next item of business is committee regional reports. We'll go through each council member to have them give us their reports. And Councilmember Boyd, do you want to report on your regional committees? I'm just kidding. Councilmember Adair.
Thank you. I just have that the Services, Safety, and Parks Committee meeting that was originally scheduled for April 28th was canceled because the May meeting was moved up to May 5th. So as a result, the agenda items for both April and May were combined into the May 5th meeting to avoid holding two meetings 1 week apart. That concludes my report.
Councilmember Nichols.
Thank you. The Eastside Transportation Partnership met in person on Friday, April 10th, but I will defer for the committee report on that to the vice chair of that committee.
Councilmember Joe.
Thank you. The Mobility and Infrastructure Committee, which was scheduled for next week, is canceled. We're canceling it because it was originally scheduled on the night that the school district meeting and council dinner was scheduled, so we just moved it to next month. April 22nd, Cascade Water Alliance Board will be meeting, and I'm on the Finance and Intergovernmental Committee, and that's meeting on 4/21. Lastly, LTAC met this afternoon, and we discussed the applications that were received last year and talked about how those applications can be improved and the information that we receive can be better processed by us to cut down on our time potentially that we review those applications. We also talked about reporting factors that were brought up at the council meeting during the LTAC discussion and trying to have a more visible, transparent process for that information as it comes back for council to deliberate on. Lastly, we received a report from our destination management organization, Visit Issaquah, and found out about the things that they've been doing in the last quarter. I believe that report has been forwarded or will be forwarded to council, so look for it in your email boxes. That concludes my report. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Walsh.
Thank you. I have 3 reports. As the chair of the Planning, Development, and Environment Committee, I want to report out that our next meeting is on May 19th, which again is a changed date because of a few shifting things. We will discuss code amendments and a goals and outcomes discussion for our proposed new housing work. And I guess I was going to say that for those who remember it, we had a goals and outcomes chart for our Title 18 work, but honestly, Council President Martz, I think you're the only one here that was there at that time. So we're bringing that back because it worked. Yes, yeah, that was just 2 years earlier when we started the process, yeah. The council rules ad hoc, so we met on April 2nd and provided feedback on several sections of the council rules: social media policy, audience comments, seating, voting and abstentions, confidentiality, correspondence, and the special meeting process. We were supposed to address the new business request process and use of staff time, but those items were continued to the April 21st meeting due to a lack of time. Our next meeting is tomorrow, April 21st at 6:30 p.m. at the Steelhead Room. We will review a draft of the social media policy, provide guidance on the changes to the new business requests and use of staff time topics, and review a complete set of draft amendments to council rules, and provide input on the presentation to City Council because we're going to report out at the May 4th meeting. And then Eastside Fire and Rescue, we met on April 9th to continue the very important detailed conversation about consolidation and financing options. One of the things we learned there is Eastside Fire and Rescue is a little bit ahead of the curve in that we basically created regional fire governance, but without all of the state levers for funding it, by creating what we currently have now with an interlocal agreement and a nonprofit. And so we reviewed the other options that might be out there, including a regional fire authority or consolidating into an existing RFA, regional fire authority, or looking at fire districts. We discussed pros and cons. We also had a bunch of other information about the potential financial impacts, but again, we ran out of time because we have such detailed and lovely conversation, so that is pushed to the May meeting. We also nominated members for the Finance and Administration Committee, which will include Council Member Adair, and our next meeting is May 14th, and that concludes my report.
Deputy President Chang.
Great. I have 3 as well. So the first one, as Councilmember Nichols mentioned, we had an Eastside Transportation Partnership meeting on Friday, April 10th in Redmond. PSRC shared some federal and state updates. We went around, all the cities shared their local priorities. One in particular to call out is that Sammamish mentioned their #1 priority is supporting Issaquah Light Rail, which was great. And then one of the items on the agenda was I had worked with some council members from Kirkland to draft a letter of support for the 4-line for the Eastside Transportation Partnership. There were a few, minor edits that were brought up, and so we worked with Metro staff to kind of implement those adjustments, and we will be approving that or voting to approve that in May in the next ETP meeting, which is on May 9th. The King County Regional Homelessness Authority had our board retreat that same day, which was Friday, April 10th, in person in Seattle. We discussed 2025 accomplishments and 2026 opportunities. Lots of interesting questions from board members. We also discussed the creation of a finance committee and an executive committee, so more to come on that. And I think probably the finance committee is going to be created in our next board meeting, which is this Friday, April 24th, which will be held virtually from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Finally, this Friday, the King County Flood Control District Advisory Committee. It's a handful. It's a 7-letter acronym. We have our first meeting this Friday from 1 to 3 p.m. And so basically this committee advises King County, the King County Council in their auspices as the King County Flood Control District on what types of flood mitigation projects to fund. And so apparently the criteria for, how they prioritize flood mitigation projects has changed since the flooding back in December. So that's going to be interesting. Probably there's going to be more funding given what we saw in December as well. So we'll have updates after that. That concludes my report.
All right, Council President Martz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sound Cities Association Public Issues Committee met on Wednesday, April 8th at 7 p.m. It was really, the biggest issue was around the King County Transportation District's 0.1 countywide sales tax. So the punchline is that when the KCTD met at different times of the evening, there were 7 of the 9 members in favor of at least some city pass-through. The problem was that there was no more than 4 of the 9 on any particular vote. So the executive's office actually opposed the pass-through, but has indicated a willingness to engage in conversation with the appropriate formula for a pass-through. Executive Director Feldstein sort of went through what the objections were. Some of them are like, well, you've never had a pass-through of this exact style before from the county back to the cities, and he had good counter-arguments for each of it. KCTD is likely to vote on an updated proposal in May. I forwarded you all the language of a draft letter. We did some wordsmithing on that. There may be some further wordsmithing. I believe that language reflects the last time this council spent some time on the subject. We are right in the middle lane of how other cities feel about it, which is like 20 to 25% would be fair and not usurious on the county. But if anybody has any feedback on that letter, please send it to me, and I will incorporate that in my comments back next month. The Sound Cities Association Board of Directors met the following Wednesday at 10 a.m. at Renton City Hall, and it was really mostly, again, about this transportation district, the King County Transportation District. That was the big thing. There was also, at both of them, there was, I would also say, a spirited conversation about Olympia this year, and about where we had successes and where we did not have successes, and how we can go about having better engagement with the folks in Olympia, and have move beyond our immediate legislators, go talk to some other legislators out there who help them understand our needs, for example, because our legislators know us well at this point, hopefully. So it was both, but at both PIC and the board of directors, there was quite a lot of conversation about how do we talk better in Olympia about issues that come up at the city level, a feeling that perhaps the way that it went indicated we can improve those conversations. That concludes my report.
Excellent. Hear that, Rep. Hall? Council President Martz wants to meet your legislative colleagues and expand his horizons. Okay, so tonight, the new Rainier Trail Dog Park opened. The council was there. It was very exciting. Chris Kovac's dog, Bug, successfully put on Tim Smith's GoPro and retrieved the very first tennis ball in the Issaquah new dog park, and it was a fun event. The spring business open house is this Thursday from 9 a.m. to 10:30 at Blakely Hall. People can come by. Basically, city staff will be there. I plan to be there. All the council is invited if they can make it, and basically just give people in the small business community of Issaquah a chance to ask questions and understand how to better navigate the process. Downtown Issaquah Summer Wine and Art starts this Friday. That's at 6 o'clock. My wife Kelly and I have already purchased our tickets, and so we will be there. I have not checked the weather yet, but we encourage everyone to attend the wine walk. And then Stacy's Sustainability Fair and the Farmers Market Preview is this Saturday. So inside Pickering Barn, you have the Sustainability Fair, and at the same time, it's sort of not I think the official launch of the Farmers Market is Saturday, May 1st, but this is called like the preview launch. And so a lot of the vendors will actually have their stuff set up as well during the Sustainability Fair this Saturday, April 25th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. E-bike demos, EV showcases, free clothing, tree giveaways. And Councilmember Joe, yes, I will be at the Cascade Water Alliance Board meeting this Wednesday from 3:30 to 5. We still have to figure out what we're doing with the interim executive director versus potentially doing a search for a new executive director. And I assume we will hopefully resolve that issue at the meeting this Wednesday. And that concludes the mayor's report. Does anyone have anything for the good of the order? Councilmember Walsh.
Thank you. Responsive to the community who have emailed us over the last several weeks and who came out tonight, I would move that the City Council direct the mayor and city administration to place the topic of the Congressional Community Appropriations Grant and the proposed automated license plate reader camera program on the agenda for the Council Committee of the Whole meeting on May 11th, 2026, including a full staff briefing and opportunity for council discussion.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any conversation? Councilmember Walsh.
Thank you. I just feel it's really important at this point to understand that our community needs transparency, accountability, and really acknowledging that we are going to follow through on issues that have already been identified as important. These automatic license plate readers, ALPRs, or flock cameras was previously scheduled to come before us on May 19th, and then it was removed from the agenda calendar. As I mentioned, at the same time, we've received a significant volume of public feedback, particularly regarding the flock cameras, with many community members asking us to address this issue openly rather than delay it. I think it's really important that we establish a clear and timely path forward and not delay something to a time uncertain after a new police chief is hired. Adding this item to our already scheduled May 11th Committee of the Whole meeting accomplishes a few things. It restores a public process around an issue that has generated community concern, provides transparency into both the grant opportunity and the proposed flock camera program. It gives the council the opportunity to ask questions and receive a full briefing from staff. And it creates a community conversation and a point where the community knows when they can hear about something. The motion does not take a position on the substance of the proposal. It simply ensures that the discussion happens in a public, transparent setting consistent with a role in providing oversight. So I think it's just really important that we recognize that the public is eager for engagement on this topic and needs an appropriate and timely opportunity to do that.
Council President Martz.
I'm a little confused about what's actually being proposed. We write checks, we pass laws, we pass resolutions. Which of those three are we talking about doing here?
I am suggesting we direct the administration to bring an item to our agenda that was previously removed.
So you're asking, because I'm not sure, so you're asking them to bring the grant, because the grant doesn't, I believe, require our approval.
Well, it should if it's a contract or since over $300,000, which is what the city council has approval authority.
I was told by one of my fellow council members that it didn't require city approval. Does it or does it not require city approval? Or council approval, I should say.
We're still working with the federal government on that, but I think at this point we believe it will. But again, we don't have something to bring before the council at this point.
Right, so you're basically directing them to finish preparing that.
Yes, because the previous timeline that was given to us was May 19th. That has since been pulled, and we've received a lot of community concern over that. And so even if the full and concise, complete information cannot be achieved by the May 11th, I believe the community deserves a time certain and a time within the bounds of the time period that was previously mentioned in order to hear what the council's response is to this topic.
I asked the city clerk, did the item get pulled or did it get moved to a different date later in the calendar?
It is currently not on our planning calendar.
It's currently under the TBD 2026, awaiting more precise scheduling So
Got it.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just remind the council that the planning calendar is just that. It's a planning calendar. It does not commit us to anything. We do it as a courtesy, to be transparent, and we often say that dates move, and certainly we do our best to fulfill them, but there is no obligation by the administration to fulfill any of that. We do our best. And I think, as the mayor has said this evening, it has been his judgment that this item still needs additional study. We want to wait for a new police chief, because that individual is going to have to move forward with the responsibility of protecting the community, and feel that it's important for that individual to have some time. And given that we're going to be hopefully interviewing candidates at the end of May, a little bit delay doesn't seem to be an issue for us. We have until the end of September to work on to accept the grant, so we have some time.
Council President Martz, did you?
Okay, so I think I'm going to oppose this motion. I think that I have heard, I think in the community there is a range of opinions. There's folks who are just dead set against using ALPRs, and there are folks who don't like how Flock organizes its ALPRs. And I suspect there are folks in the community who are okay with it, although we didn't hear from many of them this evening. I think that ALPRs remind me very much of body cameras. For many years, we did not implement body cameras because the ACLU of Washington and National ACLU and other organizations had a lot of concerns with body cameras. Over time, those concerns were addressed, and now body cameras are considered an essential tool for policing. I don't know if I support using ALPRs. I don't know where I sit in that spectrum that I just described, but I want to have a comprehensive conversation, and I think forcing the administration to have a date certain on something, I've never seen that before. I've never seen this council do that in 17 years, attempt to force the administration to have a conversation. I mean, you can pass a resolution and say, I hate flock cameras, right? But forcing the administration to bring a bill forward seems really weird to me. So I think it's a bad idea. I think it sets a bad precedent. I also think we should have a comprehensive conversation about ALPRs. I think we should understand, there is Axon, there is Motorola, there are other solutions other than Flock. I don't know if this grant would allow that, but there's other potential solutions out there. Points were brought up about domestic abuse. I would be interested to know if the police feel that ALPRs give tools to people to help prevent domestic abuse, because you can tag the potential vehicles that are coming in. I just think there's a lot of questions associated with this. I think it's an important conversation to have. I don't want to have the wrong conversation, and I certainly don't want to, again, rush the administration into something that they're not ready to do. So for all those reasons, I'm going to oppose this motion this evening. Thank you.
Councilmember Nichols.
Thank you.
City
Good
Attorney
evening,
Rachel.
Rachel Turpin, City Attorney. I just wanted to, I looked up the grant while we were sitting here, and it's for $452,000. So it will definitely have to come to council. So there's no way for the city to legally implement this grant without it getting council approval at, whether it be, now or in the future. So just to clarify that. I also wanted to let everyone know, the grant is for more than flock cameras. The application was for other technology, and I believe that the flock cameras were a pretty small part of it, and the estimate for the other technology is pretty outdated. So I'm not sure my understanding is I'm not really even sure how much grant money would be left over for flock. However, I think that you might need more time to actually get more estimates to actually know what the current costs are.
And Rachel, it's basically the way the grant is designed. You could do all tasers if you wanted to, and that would be one option that the new chief of police could recommend to the council, is just saying, hey, based on the status of the city's current equipment, I'm recommending X. But we don't know at this point in time what that new police chief's recommendation would be because we're interviewing that person on May 28th and May 29th.
Yes, that is correct. That is my understanding of the grant, is that we have put several options in our application. It can be used for any of those, but it doesn't mean that there's not some apportion that's apportioned to one versus the other. And it's likely that the tasers will end up costing more than we thought they would.
Okay, Councilmember Nichols.
Yeah, I think first of all, I support this motion, but I want to, just briefly on the procedural sides of things, I mean, my understanding is that we do these kinds of things somewhat routinely. I think the second meeting I was at, we had a good of the order motion brought up under the same process effectively to have to bring forward a discussion on supporting a school levy that was upcoming. So as far as one of the tools that are available to the council to try to control our agenda, this is, my understanding, is one of them. We also have, in our council rules, we have it's worded oddly. It says the council president and or the mayor are able to move these things around. And we also have, of course, the new business item that we exercise tonight. So we do have, it's our meeting. We do have control over the agenda, and we have a couple different mechanisms to do that. And I think this is an example that's well within the spirit of others that have quite recently been used. I don't want to debate flock cameras tonight. I don't think it'll come as any surprise to anybody that I'm against them, but I don't want to because this motion isn't about that. It's about that procedural step of trying to bring forward this discussion sooner, as we have many in our community very, very, very clearly saying they would like to see, and I think it's appropriate to as well. I have heard the argument that we should wait for a new police chief, and frankly, I disagree with that. I think we know what we will need to know with only very limited exceptions from what would happen between now and the time we get a new police chief. And that's because, as was brought up in the overwhelming public comments that we've got on this, adopting one of these programs comes down to trust. And there's a couple different layers of that trust that I want to specifically name, because I think understanding those is important to why this is a good conversation to have now and why it shouldn't matter if we wait. So layer one with this trust is we have to trust our federal government not to access our residents' data in ways that we don't sanction. Multiple examples and mechanisms for that to happen were brought up tonight. Layer two, we have to trust whether ALPR vendors we work with have adequate safeguards and to not expose or monetize their data in ways we don't want them to. Multiple examples of that failure mode were brought up tonight. We also have to trust other Washington police agencies with whom we would share the data on our residents and visitors to follow their own policies and ours, and not to become a side door that exposes our residents to surveillance. Multiple examples of that were brought up tonight. Finally, four, we have to trust our own department's internal compliance. As we're all aware, our department has had struggles, to put it mildly, to comply with their stated policies on appropriate policy and on how these data are entered to allow auditing. However, that's the only topic where I would really be interested to hear in a new police chief's opinion. And I think if we are no on any of those first layers of trust, if we're no on the federal government, if we're no on the companies overall, if we're no on how other agencies in Washington can be trusted to always follow their own policies, then we should logically be no to the entire proposal, because it requires trust on all of those. So waiting for a new chief does not make sense to me. I think we have quite a bit of feedback from the community that they would like to hear this put to bed now, one way or the other. It's obviously causing quite a bit of anxiety for many, many people. And the new data we get, I think, is only germane in the case where we first have all of those layers of trust finalized. The last point I want to make on this is I have heard, at least discussion, that SB 6002 will offer us reassurance, and that we'll need time to figure out how to implement that. That's another reason to delay. This is another one I just don't really understand. Like, it's a state statute that sets a minimum acceptable behavior, but not like a maximum aspiration for how carefully our city should treat its residents' data. And we can have that discussion now, too. I find it really notable. The prime sponsor of that bill, SB 6002, said earlier in the month, and I'm quoting her, quote, I don't like these cameras either, and if you ask me at the local level, I'd be very uncomfortable with the cameras. So when the legislator who sponsored the guardrails says she herself would be uncomfortable deploying the technology, we should hear that. So 6,002 is a floor, but it permits us to stand very far above it if we want to, and we know what we need to know now, and we should let the community know what our thoughts are. So I support the motion.
Councilmember Adair.
Yes, so when this agenda item was originally on there, it was told to me that, it was plans to extend it and to delay it rather. And at the time I did support that because I equally wanted a very robust level of information and discussion on this, because I do think it is a very important topic and one that has a lot of layers, outcomes, and people affected by it. So I did want more time to get that information. But in the last few weeks, my opinion on that decision has changed due to the public outcry. Like, besides the daily emails we are getting to City Council, I've had direct conversations of individuals in the city just talking to me out on the street, neighbors. There is a real sense of fear, uncertainty, and the community, the act of it, the community expecting it to be discussed and then suddenly not being discussed has created a sense of distrust with this government. And I'm just seeing that daily now. And so I do feel that this discussion needs to happen now earlier. And I think the delay is creating more problems by doing it. And so I feel that there is a mechanism in which we can discuss this earlier. As brought up, the grant covers many technologies. Perhaps the discussion is simply on the specific of this technology shouldn't be part of that grant. The mechanisms I'm uncertain about, but I believe we do need to have this discussion now in order to regain that trust with the community. So I do support this motion.
And I don't know the answer to this. City Administrator, do we know if Chief Schwann's availability is on May?
She is doing some traveling as she concludes her service with the city. She certainly has said that she'll be available electronically.
Okay, so our Chief of Police is not in town to do the presentation on May 11th. I'm just making that clear. Okay, Councilmember Cho.
Thank you. Former Mayor Fred Butler said something that kind of sticks in my mind. If you want it bad, you get it bad. And let me just put that in context for you. If we push this up and we don't know the full contents of the package, it creates a situation where the public doesn't know what's in the package, and they'll be bringing comments about the what ifs, the whatabouts, and not the package itself. If we wait, I'm hearing from the administration that they'll know what they're going to put in that package because they're working on the estimates, they're working on how the pieces will be put together in there, and we'll know whether or not there's even an element of flock cameras in there or not. And if there is, how much it is and why it's being brought forward. The last element is the police chief issue. Think about it when you come into a new job, you've just been hired. I would want the flexibility to create and mold the funding that's going to adhere to my vision of what I want to see in this new job. And then put that out there for a conversation with the council or whatever governing body, it might be a board of directors, to work on that vision together so it's a shared vision with compromise going forward. If we decide to not do the grant at all, that flexibility is gone for the new person. If we decide what we want to put into that grant without the input from the new person that's coming in, we've straitjacketed that person for at least a year on the vision that they would like to put forward before we've even heard what vision they'd like to bring forward. That doesn't mean that their vision is going to be what we're going to do. That doesn't mean that our vision is what we're going to do, but we're going to work together to find out what that vision is, and in a collaborative fashion, to welcome that new candidate in, the new police chief in, so that vision can be one that's shared by everybody. Justice delayed is justice denied was something that was said during the debate about my ancestors and their internment in Minidoka. In this particular case, delaying it and telling the community that we are delaying it and why we're delaying it, and then telling them what date certain we're going to bring it back. It's got to come back before September, but the administration will have a better idea of saying, this is the date that we're going to bring it back. If people want to comment on it, these are the ways that they can comment on it. Here are the public hearing potentials. Here are the public comment potentials. They will know what's in the package. They'll know what they're commenting on. We will know what we're talking about and moving forward. If we bring it in too early, there's just too much speculation that can go on. And if you have speculation about, let's say, a drug center for needles, you can have a discussion that goes till midnight because people are talking about the what ifs and the speculation, not talking about what's actually in the package. I'd be in favor of not supporting this motion so that we could have a clear picture from the administration, from our new police chief, what is going in there. Flock cameras are not coming in between now and the time that we're considering this grant in any way, shape, or form. We can tell our citizens that. We can tell them that it's going to be discussed on a date certain, and here's what's in the package. Here's what's going to be discussed, and then they can give their input on the actual package rather than on speculation as to what might be in the package, which could include anything and everything under the sun, including drones that surveil us and are like the Terminator, just as an extreme example. That could be in there too, from a person's point of view. So I would be in favor of delaying this until we can get a clear picture of what is going to actually be in the package. The administration, from what I understand, is not prepared to tell us what they're going to put in that package because the estimates are not there. We want to give the flexibility to the police chief coming in. I would hope that we would delay this. And I'm not saying that we don't need to discuss flock cameras. If it's in there, we certainly need to have a robust discussion, but I'm not in support of the motion this evening. Thank you.
Deputy President Chang.
So I think my take on this motion is, committee of the whole is not about making a specific decision, right? It's that this grant is going to be brought to us and we're going to have a conversation about it. I think it's been brought up multiple times tonight, the grant could cover a bunch of different things. It would be, I think, very helpful for me and also probably for my fellow council members to get a presentation on what all those different things are, just so that we're actually on the same page. Because I think maybe I kind of skimmed the grant, but I think we can have a better conversation if we actually understand what the grant entails. And I don't think we've actually gotten that yet. So I think I would support having that conversation, as a committee of the whole, so that we can actually, because if the topic is, okay, we're getting this federal grant, what can we do with it? I think we can discuss a few of the different things, what we put in there, what it could potentially be used for, and give some general guidance on how to move forward. That doesn't, because it's committee of the whole, that doesn't necessarily preclude us from, waiting for the new police chief to be hired to actually make a decision. It just gives us the opportunity to actually understand what is in the grant, which I think we've all kind of been having these conversations about. And I think even for those of us on the council, I think would be very helpful to actually understand what the grant is and what it is not. And also, there have been times when we've had multiple committee of the whole meetings on a specific topic, right? This could just be a first touch of, okay, here's what the grant is, here's what the proposal is so far. We could tweak it in this way or the other way, but again, I think it's important for us to actually have a clear understanding of what that is, even if we don't have the cost estimates on every specific component. I think it would be really helpful for us to get an actual presentation on it. So I will be supporting this.
Councilmember Adair. Oh, Councilmember Boyd.
I was largely going to say that I'm interested in discussing this at the Council of the Whole because we don't have to make a decision at that meeting. I think it would be very beneficial to discuss it, and my understanding, which is very rocky because of how new I am, is that this isn't too much earlier than the original timeline that the council was gonna discuss this issue or have it on the agenda more. So I very much hear the administrative concerns about, needing time to get all the right details, but I think the community would benefit from us discussing it with what we have, especially if we are open about we will be getting more details in the future. But for now, let's start this conversation.
Councilmember Dare.
Yeah, so I wanted to echo Deputy President Zhang's points that in the Committee of the Whole, we get to discuss something in all its details, similar to the Parks Levy renewal we talked about. And while we didn't remove one of the proposed projects during that meeting, we could have said, oh, we don't like that project, don't include that in your ongoing work on this levy. Similarly, with this package, we are not deciding on the grant as a whole, but we could say, okay, we like these elements of it, and as you continue to have these conversations and build it, we like these things, we don't like these things, and that be part of that conversation. So I do think this is a good time and place to start having those, and to help inform the new chief when they do get there and they are building this package of what they want to do and what they see for our police force. They have the inputs from us already of the things that we support, the things we feel the community supports. And so I feel like we can have this conversation now to discuss it. We're not necessarily voting on the grant, but we're trying to inform it in terms of how it will be built, similar to how we build other things.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just to try to clarify, so we have submitted a grant. We can come and we can share orally. We've already shared the documents with the council, but we can share it for the community. This is what the notice was that we responded to. This is what we proposed. And then we have received notification that we received the grant with a dollar amount. And so the next step to that is to negotiate a grant agreement with the federal government, which we have not yet done, and we will not have done by the 11th. So really,
we don't even have a draft right now, just so everyone is clear. Okay.
So we will basically share what we've already shared, which is this is what was the request, and it was a request from Congressman Schreier's office, and then what we submitted as an application. And that's what we'll share. And the council can comment, I guess, as you like. As we've said, we're trying to get a better sense of the costs associated with the tasers. That those are it's a larger dollar amount. It's a fixed dollar amount. We got a proposal that was received when we put the grant together. We have gone back to the manufacturer to get an updated cost. We've yet to receive that. So we'll share what we have at the time. But then that would be as far as we would go. Is that my understanding at the Committee of the Whole, and get whatever input you have on the grant that we submitted a year ago?
Deputy President Zhang, and then President Martins.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's aligned with what I was thinking. Any additional detail you're able to share on, is there any flexibility? Here's what we applied for the grant for. Is there any flexibility in, what we can spend it on? To the extent you're able to share that, and just share a snapshot of where we're at in the process, I think that would be helpful just from the perspective of transparency, since that's what we've been hearing a lot about from our community.
Okay. I think, Rachel, we know we have flexibility right now. Right?
Well, we don't. I don't know because I don't have an agreement to look at. So until I get a document from the federal government that has the rules and restrictions in it, I can't say that with certainty. That's the way most of it works. It's listed in the federal appropriations bill as taser equipment. It's not, or as I think body-worn camera equipment, because it's equipment that links the body-worn camera to your taser discharge. So I know that's not the bulk of the funding. I can't imagine that they wouldn't say, oh, you can take, it looks like approximately $380,000, $85,000 of the $342,000 is for the taser equipment. So it's $75,000 that's for the ALPR system. I can't imagine that they wouldn't say, oh, you just don't have to take the whole thing, and you can take whatever the amount is for the tasers, and I imagine that will be okay. That is the way it is with pretty much most grant agreements I've ever read, but I won't be able to give you that certainty on May 11th unless I see the contract.
Council President Martz.
So I understand the argument that by talking about it at committee of the whole, it's not the point, we're not making necessarily a decision at that first committee of the whole. Nevertheless, at some point, somewhere here before September, we'll have to make a decision. And I think we owe it to ourselves to, what we've not heard thus far in this conversation at all, is why our police force wants ALPRs. We haven't heard why cities like Kent and Auburn are very happy having ALPRs. I think that there's a conversation to the extent that there are specific concerns that we've heard around things like protection of folks in domestic violence and in areas like local database control. I think that we want to hear what's the state of the art in that. And I think that we probably want to hear the State versus Simonson decision around the Fourth Amendment and its relationship to ALPRs here in Washington State to address that concern that we've heard from the public. So that's all. I believe those things should all be discussed before we make a decision. Whether that occurs at the next Cal meeting or a Cal meeting after that or whatever, I think we would be doing a disservice merely because we have heard a lot of public concern with this technology. I don't think that's the end of the conversation. I think it's beholden to us to ask for a good understanding of, to the best that we can, of the concerns that we've heard before we make a decision. Thank you.
Councilmember Walsh.
Thank you. I would be interested in hearing why the police department applied for this grant, why they thought these particular technologies would be interesting to them. That's a piece of the puzzle, and I would expect with any presentation to the city council on a potential grant, it would be, why did we seek this grant? What were we trying to solve? So that makes sense from my perspective on that. My goal in this is to create a date certain and public transparency. All of the information that we have been talking about thus far, the fact that there are tasers involved in this potential grant, the fact that this came from Congresswoman Schreier's office, the fact that our police department applied for it in 2025, all of that is information that we have as city council members that the public does not have. And so the goal here at the very, very minimum is to have a meeting where there is public information shared about this potential grant opportunity, what that could include, why we applied for it, and what the city council and the community's perspectives are on that. And I think Councilmember Adair's point of, hey, if we came into this, just like if we had a potential sustainability grant and you came to city council and said, look, do you want us to focus more on solar panels or more on a community-oriented set of heat pumps? We could provide that perspective, and that keeps you from going down a path of trying to solve two different things if the decision-making body, which is the 7 of us up here, have a perspective, particularly as informed by the community. So I think there is the potential that this could save the administration time and effort if we are able to daylight some of these pieces of information and feedback early.
Councilmember Nichols.
The other point on this that I think has been brought up a couple of times is that this doesn't have to be the only time we have this conversation. I think it's highly unlikely that if we were to bring flock cameras into Issaquah, we would only want a single conversation on it. I think we will want multiple. And I appreciate that we don't know everything we would want to know at the moment, and that the administration doesn't have everyone present who could present it because they haven't been hired. Those are all valid points. Nonetheless, it's not that we know nothing. We do have a good amount that we do know. We know, as has been brought up, that we applied for this grant. We know what the grant says. We know what the justifications for it were in that grant. And that is, of course, all somewhat public, but it's hard to access unless you really know what you're looking for. So making that clear and clearly available would, I think, be a good minimum first step there. And if there's more that the administration has the time to acquire by that point, whether it's quotes, whether it's a more informed perspective based on an advocate within the administration who wants to make a case one way or the other, or whether it's federal contract language, if we receive that. Those would all be nice to have to add on, but I do expect we will have additional conversations on this in the future, and this isn't a rush. Like, this is a first touch at a conversation that shouldn't be rushed, and we have plenty of time to have multiple conversations to that end.
Councilmember Adair.
I don't have much more to add. Councilmembers Walsh and Nichols basically said what I was wanting to say, in that I feel like the point of this isn't necessarily for you to have everything about this final agreement, but to have everything that has brought us to this point and what next steps you are working on, what you are thinking about. Because clearly the grant had some, components to it, technologies in it, and this is coming from the new person and I wasn't in these prior meetings, that I don't know all that, and I'm here. A lot of it is hearsay. And I feel that the public really demands this, and so that's why I do think we need to have this up front. Here is where everything is. Here is where what we found out. Here's what has been approved or not approved, and here's where the next steps will be. And so recognize you won't have a full contract, but that you can kind of get us to that day of where everything is, and we can present that, discuss that, and then figure out the next steps.
And Mr. Mayor, so again, I want to make sure that when we do have the conversation that everyone's on the same page of what we're coming back with. So we will bring the notice that we responded to. We will bring the application. We will have the justification from the department. I think it would also be useful for us to review the previous council discussion, because the reality of how this all happened was the discussion that occurred at Services, Safety, and Parks, and then the discussion that occurred with the full city council last July, where the council, I think, and we'll have to go back and watch the tape to get the actual words, but certainly the impression that was left to the police department staff after the July discussion was, sure, this is really interesting, but there's no money. And so I think the impetus for the police staff to actually file this application was the discussion in July from the council that said, yeah, this is a good idea, but we don't have the money right now. So we want to make sure we'll go back and include those pertinent portions. Off the top of my head, I think it was 2 discussions. It came out of Services, Safety, and Parks. I think it then came back to the council. So it may be a 3rd discussion, because there absolutely was a discussion in July where we said, is this something that the council wants to allocate funds for? The council said, no, we're concerned about where we are in the current fiscal year. We don't want to do that. And I think that from that point on is when the department said, okay, great, we'll go find the money. If the council doesn't have the money but is not objecting at that point with what was known, that's what brought that. So we'll go back and get the tapes and share for those members who were not on the council for those discussions, to at least have the benefit of what the staff heard from the council in those discussions. So that will be what we bring back on the 11th. Does that make sense for everyone? Great.
Okay. Yeah, and to reiterate, I think what we just heard from City Administrator Tintola's point, I think a lot of the issues that Council President Martz brought up we're not going to have the time to kind of bring those arguments forward on May 11th. But I think, as the City Administrator described, we'll bring forward kind of the factual information that we do have and go from there. So there's no further discussion. The motion from the council. Oh, Councilmember Joe.
I'm always curious, if we devote time to this between now and May 11th, what are we not going to be able to address, or what will go off the plan, if anything, on the administration side?
Much of the information is already gathered. I think the piece that we'll have to go back is to get a precise documentation of the council's discussions on this, because I think through the discussions I've heard this evening, you want to know why this happened. And I think a part of why this happened was the discussions that the city council had in the spring and summer last year, which certainly was different than the discussions that are happening now. And so I think, just for the record, we want to make sure that the community is aware of the council's previous discussions on this topic. This just didn't come out of the blue, that there were discussions last year. So we'll include that as well. So that's the only part that will require some work, and we've got a couple of weeks to do that. Again, it was 2 or 3 meetings. The clerk's office will help us determine that pretty quickly.
Okay, so there's no further discussion. The motion from the council is to direct the mayor and city administration to place the topic of the Congressional Community Appropriations Grant and the proposed automated license plate reader camera program on the agenda for the council committee of the whole meeting on May 11th, 2026, including a full staff briefing and opportunity for council discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no.
Nay.
And that passes 5-2. And I'd like to announce the following upcoming council meetings. Monday, April 27th, the joint meeting with the City Council and the Issaquah School Board is at 6 p.m. Yes, we will have Thai food from our favorite Thai place across the street here. This will be at the Issaquah Senior Center. Anticipated agenda items. Welcome in team building. Yes, that's an agenda item. City of Issaquah development update, growth projections, updates on activities, issues for ISD schools located in Issaquah, updated the new high school, and the joint use agreement with the Parks Department. The next regular City Council meeting is Monday, May 4th. Anticipated agenda items are the City Council Rules and Procedures Ad Hoc Committee report out, the Public Records Act training. Get excited. Yeah, always exciting. Public Records Act. I know our city clerk is really excited for that training. And there's no further business. This meeting is adjourned at 10:23 p.m.